City of Salem, the City Council Committee on Administration and Finance, co-posted with the Committee of the Whole, met in the Council Chamber Tuesday, June 7th, 2016 at 6:07 p.m. for the purpose of discussing the matters listed below. Notice of this meeting was posted on May 26th at 1:42 p.m. It was revised on June 1, 2016 at 3:12 p.m. to add City Clerk, City Council, elections, CPA funding for Emerton House, revolving list of fiscal year 17 accounts, bond order for water sewer capital equipment and CIP, and bond order for general fund capital equipment and CIP. The bond orders will also be taken up, just for the public's information, at the June 9th subcommittee meeting at 6 p.m. For the purposes of this evening, all of the bonds are going to be open for discussion, so that on Thursday we can really limit the discussion and hopefully just have votes on that night, because we only have a half an hour during that particular time right before the regular city council meeting. In terms of attendance, we have all members of the committee except for Councilor Girard present at the moment. I'm sure that Councilor Girard is on her way and will be here shortly. No members present currently from the Committee of the Whole. The subjects on for tonight are the fiscal year budget meetings for the City Clerk, City Council, elections, police, Harbor Master. Number 329, the order to authorize the establishment of the revolving funds for fiscal year 2017. Number 325, the bond order in the amount of $18,120,000 to pay for water sewer capital equipment items and capital improvement projects. Number 326, bond order in the amount of $5,278,676 to pay for general fund capital equipment and capital improvement projects. And number 340, CPA funding for the Emerton House. We're going to go out of order, and we're going to start with number 340, the CPA funding for the Emerton House, unless there's objection from committee members. We'll start with number 340. Present in the chamber, and actually Ms. Guy, if you wouldn't mind coming to the table at the head of the dais here, that would be great. Jane Guy, who is an assistant city planner for the City of Salem, is also the coordinator for the Community Preservation Committee. We have several members of the Community Preservation Committee here present in the chambers. We also have, I believe, several members of the public who are either directly affiliated with or are friends of the Women's Friends Society. And what I would like to do is first we'll open up the questioning to councilors, and if there's a representative or representatives of the of Emerton House, I would invite those one or two people to come up to the table as well to help answer questions that I'm sure that councilors will have, and perhaps the public. I will open it up to some limited public discussion, but I want to have everyone be cognizant that we do have several budget matters that are on for tonight, and we have been, just so that everyone knows, we've been going in, this is the fourth night. Every night we've started at around 6 o'clock and we've gone till 9:30 with all of our budget hearings. So we want to possibly steer clear of that tonight, if at all possible. But it's obviously a very important topic. That's why we have it in committee and why we want to discuss it. Also, I want to let the record reflect that Councilor Girard has now joined us. We are starting off with Councilor Girard with number 340, the CPA funding for Emerton House, is our first item of business. And I will now quiet down and open things up to Ms. Guy to perhaps just set the table for us of what the request that was submitted to the CPC, what was recommended by the CPC, and we can go from there.
Okay. I didn't really prepare anything. The Women's Friends Society requested $65,750 to do rehabilitation work to the exterior of the building. The committee this Community Preservation Committee met a couple of times and ranked it a high priority. And in their vote, they voted to fund $50,560 out of the Historic Reserve for FY17, and with the condition that a preservation restriction be entered, be executed, so that the city will have a permanent preservation restriction on file. And so there's a considerable amount of work, and I'm sure that the representatives here can attest to the needs that they have and the services that they provide. In their mission is to provide a safe, affordable living environment to single women of any nationality or class, working or student, and encourage habits of industry and self-reliance. They have 20 women living there currently at the Emerson House. So that's sort of the gist of the application and what is recommended by the CPC.
I'll open this up to any questions by the council.
Mr. Chairman, could I add something legally, just to the context?
Ed Moriarty is a member of the CPC.
Yes, Mr. Moriarty, if you wanted to provide.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that there's actually multiple issues, but there's a couple of issues that I would like to address in terms of the legality versus the authority of the City Council. First of all, I don't think anybody on the CPA is going to dispute that the council has absolute authority to approve or to disapprove recommendations of the CPA. So for whatever reason the council decides to make public after its determinations, the CPA is bound by that, and so is the city. So if the CPA, for this or any other request, chooses not to fund it, that is the end of the story, for whatever reasons. And if you believe it is in any and every case inappropriate to use public funds to finance in any way an entity that is not public, and this is not a public entity, although it is a 501c3, and in fact has been, as the literature indicates, been so charitably incorporated since 1884, that's for the council to decide. But I think that it's beyond dispute, in my opinion, as a member of the council and as a practicing attorney, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I think it's beyond dispute that it is lawful and appropriate for any CPA to provide, as long as it meets the necessary criteria of the statute, to provide funding to any project that is consistent with the statute, even if the applicant is not a public entity, even if the applicant is, in this instance, a private entity, a 501c3 charitable organization. And it's clear, as was provided to us today, there's a ruling that goes back to the Department of Revenue back in 2007 where something similar happened when the CPA was newer, that it is clear that as long as it is a 501c3, as long as it is for a public purpose, and as Jane indicates, as long as the community is receiving something in return to promote and to preserve and to protect that public purpose, that is the very purpose of the act. So in this particular case, the historic restriction that will be placed on the property in the Registry of Deeds and in perpetuity will be for the benefit of the entire city. So the city is getting something in return. The entire city is getting something in return. The property is burdened by that for in perpetuity, and it is within the legal imagination of the people who drew up the statute and the people who administer it and the people here who have provided funding. So there is always a requirement, and that's clear under this particular decision. If you'd like, I can give you a copy of it. It's clear that there always has to be a public purpose associated with the use of any funds in Massachusetts. That's a constitutional requirement as well as a statutory requirement of the CPA legislation. But so long as there is a public purpose, you will find that there has been for decades funding at the state level and also derivatively at the federal level to historic premises that are owned in trust by 501c3s. So I would like to indicate that this body is the final determinant as to applications. And if you believe, I don't, but if you believe that under no circumstances should anybody ever receive public funds, if they're not a public entity, that would mean that no applicant other than the city should receive funds, you may do so on a case-by-case basis. But I think that the law, and there was some question about that previously by one of my heroes, Mr. Chairman, one of my idols, Mr. Joseph O'Keefe, thought that it was unconstitutional and it was illegal. It's not. It's constitutional, it's legal, it's appropriate, and there is an exchange between the city and the applicant in this case. This historic, what's it called, Jane? What's it called? The historic restriction. This historic restriction is the exchange that guarantees that this becomes a piece of public property in perpetuity. Thanks.
Mr. Moriarty, thank you very much for those comments, and I will speak for myself, and I think everyone else on the current council. I won't speak for Councilor O'Keefe, but I think that no one is suggesting that it's not legal for a nonprofit to apply. I think it's a. Let me back up. It's more of a. The question of can this application be submitted? The answer to that is absolutely yes. It's absolutely viable. The question that at least one of my colleagues has that I don't have on this particular item, but at least one of my colleagues has is should we? So it's a question of can or should. And I think so I'm agreeing with you, Mr. Moriarty, in the sense that as you just highlighted, under the law, of course they can. It's a matter of should, though, what's the discretion of the council in approving or disapproving a particular applicant. So with that, let's open it up for questioning among committee members, and we can go from there. Councilor Milo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I want to thank you for getting this meeting scheduled so quickly, squeezing it in, because I was the one who requested that this go to committee so that we could have this discussion. I thank the CPA committee for all the work that they do. I know that every project that you recommend is vetted thoroughly. And as Councilor Epley just said, there's no question in anybody's mind. I don't think that what is done is absolutely legal. I also know that I'm not here to debate the merits of the organization or any organization that's recommended for funding, especially this organization. We know they do great work, and that's not really why I think we are here this evening. Rather, it's to, as Ms. Moriarty said, have a discussion, however brief it may end up being, because of the time constraint that we're under, about whether or not, as you said, Councilor Epley, we should take Salem city taxpayer funds and use them for projects outside of city projects. In other words, something that goes to a nonprofit. So, I mean, on principle alone, I believe that we should keep the money in the city. When the CPA was passed, I thought this was going to be a great opportunity for the city to leverage funds. At the time, we were probably thinking we'd get, $1.25 on a dollar. So, we'd get a 25% investment was going to be pretty good. But I think as I said personally, I feel that we need to keep the money in the city. We're going to pass a $150 million budget tomorrow. And one of the phrases that keeps coming up when we talk about all the great work that can be done in the city is limited resources. So I believe that all the tax dollars, all the city tax dollars, state and federal, that's not, I don't think, for us to discuss here. But as far as the city goes, I believe that it's appropriate to keep all the city funds in city projects. I mean, we've got over 200 nonprofits here in the city, and I'll support everyone as much as I can, but I think we need to keep those taxpayer city dollars in the city. So I don't really have any questions, but I appreciate everybody being here to have this discussion, because we don't really have an opportunity, I don't think, really last year to have a fairly robust discussion. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Gerard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In a way, I agree with my colleague that the money should stay in the city, but I think where I differentiate is that this is part of the city, that the Emerton House is very important to the city, important to women in the city. So if we're saying that if we were going to give money, if we're saying, okay, well, you know what, we're going to do Boston Street Crossing, we've done things with the North Shore CDC, we've done things with these other housing projects, that if someone could get into the Salem Housing Authority, then they would be okay. But because these 20 women couldn't get housing through the Salem Housing Authority, we're going to turn our nose up at them and say, no, we're not going to give you this money for this roof, because even though you are in the city, even though you're taxpayers in the city, you contribute to the city, you work in the city, you go to school in the city. Some of these women I've met and I've known throughout my life, and so to somehow exclude them from the city, I think that's unfair, and that's not even true. that these are people who are part of our city, and this is an important home. This is an important building to our city, and this is part of the history of Salem. Is this house, is the Women's the Women's Friends Society, and the Emerton House. This is very important to the city. So, I mean, to not support this is to say that you really don't support the city and you really don't support women in the city. And I don't think that that's what any of us would ever want to say. So.
Councillor Fury.
I think we're very blessed to have the Community Preservation Act. It's manna from heaven. And I think Jane Guy's leadership and each of the members on board of the Community Preservation Act have been there since the very beginning. And I was very fortunate to be there at the last meeting when you went through this. And it was a very agonizing process for the whole committee to go through to prioritize which of these worthy causes should receive funding. It was agonizing on you and each and every one of you. Tim Shea's been there, Pat Canacho, let's go see. Tim, Kevin, and Ed's legal experience. Amazing. The experience and wealth of this committee, Community Preservation Act. And each of these has a human face to it. You may have a dollar sign here, says how much money is going to it, but it has a human Salem face to it. 3 members of my family, immediate family, at different stages of their life, have lived at the Emerton House. I work at House 7 Gables. Carolyn Emerton is Miss Salem. She's the history of Salem. So I think this is the most worthy cause to go to a very public purpose, as Attorney Moriarty said. It's a public purpose. Manna for heaven for cities and towns. Peabody's been one of the longest cities and towns to have this, and they're buying the old Betancourt furniture store on the corner of Washington and Main Street to turn it into maybe a museum and so on. They have done amazing things in Peabody. Now and Damas just got on board. Damas realizes the potential of what the Community Preservation Act is. So I think they've done very wisely their homework, and they thought that this serves a public purpose, as Councilor Moriarty says, to help the Emerton Women's Friends Society. And there's other places that have come before you. I can remember, I think, some people from the Athenaeum Library on Essex Street that have come to you. Beautiful library. Inside, outside, reminds me of the Jefferson Monument, inside and outside. They would love to have their windows fixed. They would love to have their roof fixed. It's a beautiful facility for Salem, a showpiece. But you didn't get the funding. Your decision, your wisdom, your judgment. And I thank each and every one of you. But I think it serves a public purpose in the highest essence of the Women's Friends Society. I see it through human eyes, through 3 members of my family, different stages of their lives. Salem State students, they're out using it, young people, middle-aged people, older people. It's a wonderful piece of Salem, and I congratulate you for doing it. Thank you.
Councillor Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd have to echo the comments of actually all the councilors sitting across from me here today. But being the newest councilor here, I got sworn in 5 months ago. I was not present last year, as you know, where we had a debate or a conversation about using some of these funds, taxpayer funds, on private projects, and what the resolution of that was. And you no longer have to, you only have to look as far as my family to find out some of the benefits of the Emerton House. My mom was not at the Emerton House. She was at a similar type of house outside of Salem growing up. And the Emerton House has my full support across the board on this. But we, as the councilors, need to make sure, and me being so green, we need to make sure that it's done in absolute accordance with the laws, because I believe several councilors last year received complaints about this taxpayer money going for private benefit. And when it was asked to be sent to this committee, so we can have a bigger discussion about it, whereas we can't really do that on the council floor in a bigger meeting, anytime any councilor asks for something to go to committee, unless it is jeopardizing a grant deadline or something, I will always recommend it at their request to go to committee. So that's why I supported this measure to come before committee, not really to analyze Emerton at all, but to have the bigger discussion about spending the taxpayer money on the private projects. And so hopefully we'll shed more light on the allowed uses, allowed categories that our funds can be spent on. So specifically, I'd like to address Jane Guy, if I may, through the chair. Jane, if you could just talk a little bit more about the why and how specifically this one project is eligible through the CPA.
It's eligible as a historic preservation project. While it serves a housing purpose, that is not what makes this particular project eligible under CPA regulations. Any project, any historic building is considered historic if, one, it's over 50 years old, and two, if it's on the National Register of Historic Places, or the Salem Historic Commission determines that it is in a significant historic resource. So that's how this one.
Has that been done?
This is on the National Register.
Can you talk a little bit more about the preservation restriction? What does it say and what does it really mean?
Preservation restriction is actually something that Mass Historic has to approve. We just did one for the Seven Gables that's quite lengthy, and it talks about what they have to preserve, when they have to get approval for things like ordinary maintenance. They wouldn't, but if they want to make changes, they have to get approval. That it's held by the Salem Historic Commission, so they have the overview of that. And it spells out basically the Secretary of Interior standards have to be followed for the building in perpetuity.
Now, this is something that the Emerton House will support? Welcome.
They're aware that they will have to do this in order to receive this funding. They'll have to sign it before they get the funding.
Would it be acceptable if a condition were placed by this board that the funding be subject to that preservation restriction being in place and accepted by the state? Or
well, that's part of the recommendations, that they have to enter into a preservation restriction. So that is part of it, and so by you adopting the recommendation of the CPC, that condition is in place.
I have no additional questions. Mr. Treasurer?
No, I'm okay. I'm not on the committee, but I'm perfectly okay with this. We had a big debate about the House of Seven Gables last year, and that was more of a debate where, even though it's a nonprofit, there was money coming in through, tickets and all that kind of thing. I don't think the Edmonton House charges admission, right? There's no tickets to get in and nothing like that? Just like my house, right? So, I think it's a nonprofit in the biggest sense of a nonprofit, and has a great mission. And I'm glad to approve this. I know there's always going to be the debate about where the funds are used, and there's always probably more projects left at the end of the money than that you'd like to have money for, but I'm perfectly okay with this now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. I'll speak to this briefly. I'm in full support of the Emerton application. Let me just start off by saying that. And the reason why I'm in support of it is there is a underlying housing need that's being served and has been served by Emerton House for decades. And so I'm in support of that. My only question is not for Emerton. My only question is on use of CPA dollars for nonprofits that are large nonprofits and that are geared specifically on the historical side of things. Where I'm thinking of specifically is the House of Seven Gables was mentioned from last year. That's a large nonprofit where there's income of approximately $1 million a year. Coming in, and we're spending on that particular project $30,000 to $40,000 ultimately is what we spent with CPA funds last year. I don't think that that's a matter of our tax money going toward for what is essentially a large historical nonprofit. Another example would be the PEM. The Peabody Essex Museum is almost $1 billion agency, and there should be no tax dollars. We already don't receive taxes from these properties within the city. As it is, we have some pilots and silots, but I agree with my at-large counselor in that respect, that we have many more needs that need to be met than to helping support a multi-million-dollar nonprofit. Similarly, if Salem State has some sort of eligibility, again, it's funded by the state, certainly in our state tax dollars and tuition, but there shouldn't be ongoing monies going toward that. Those aren't before us tonight, but having this discussion, I think, is good, and so I appreciate the good at-large counselor for bringing this in. But on this particular application, and any application concerning housing, I'm going to support it 100%. We need that. There are folks within the city, with just like the CDC was as an example that Councilor Gerard had mentioned, as well as Harbor Light Housing as well, that now has projects on Boston Street, 2 of them, as a matter of fact, that we have CPA funds that are going toward this year. That is a vital public need that needs to be served and is served by those agencies and certainly by Emerson House. So I'm in strong support of that, and I will hope that eventually we can get a vote to approve and that this goes to the full council on Thursday for final approval. At this point, I will quiet down, and if anyone else has any other, Councilor Dibble.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. One thing I failed to mention was that I would be in favor of sending a message back to the CPA and to the city as a whole, for those watching at home, that it's okay to roll some of this money over rather than spend every nickel in one calendar year. So we can roll it over, maybe even a couple of years, until we have a giant seed and possibly doing something bigger in the way of housing. And I'm glad the Emerton is here, because it's falling under historic preservation, so it comes in a different category. But even though it is housing, it's a different category for this one. But with regard to housing, whereas the Salem Housing Authority is not putting applications before us for any affordable housing type projects, maybe we can think, and I'm sending the message to the CPA funds, maybe we think about rolling this money over for a few years and have a much bigger pot that we can actually put a larger building, a complex up, and make a bigger dent in the problem.
Councilor Gerard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jane, how much is left over?
This year, about 12,000. But we will be
how much-
getting,
how
there
much
will
is
be
left
more
over?
money in the fall when,
Right.
on June 30th, when the surcharges everything gets certified and goes off to the DOR. Whatever extra surcharges beyond the estimate that the city assessor made, which we think will be at least another 75,000, will come in the fall, along with interest and any fees or, and then the state matching funds come in November as well. So there's more money that comes in the fall.
Okay, and this was something that actually came up when this was originally being discussed, and I was taking minutes for the planning board, that this was a question that it was actually one of the members, that it was Randy Clark, that had asked this about when do we use funds, like can we do like a bunch of small projects and then put stuff towards big projects. But I mean, you can see that we are doing some small projects, some bigger projects, and that is where, I mean, they're using the money exactly the way that they should be using the money, and they're vetting these things exactly the way that they're supposed to vet these projects, that when you go to these meetings, that they really look very carefully and very closely at these applications. And when this came up again, and to be honest, I was very disappointed to see this come up again, because this is allowed, because funding nonprofits is allowed per the CPA. And so I reached out to the executive director of the Community Preservation Coalition, and something that he had said to me was that of the 161 communities in the Commonwealth that do have the CPA, that majority of projects that are funded are to nonprofits. So this isn't something unusual that is unique to Salem. And I had actually mentioned to him that I said, hey, I think maybe one of the concerns could be because we have the Peabody Essex Museum, but as you said, they have billions. They have so much money. They're not going to need these little. I mean, these are big amounts, but not little. These are little amounts to them. So I think to group all nonprofits in with the Peabody Essex Museum, or to group all nonprofits in with the Salem State, I think that's unfair, because the nonprofits that are asking for the money, that have come and asked us for the money, aren't necessarily these huge nonprofits that it's not like they don't need it, and it's not like they aren't integral parts of the city.
I would just respond to my colleague that the issue is that the House of Seven Gables did submit an application, and that is a large nonprofit, and we did award that, and so it's, I think, very valid questions. That doesn't question the validity, that does not question the appropriateness of the application, the diligence of the CPC in vetting all of those. It doesn't lessen that in any degree whatsoever, but different counselors have different opinions on what should or shouldn't be done. It's not, can we be done? Of course they can, because it's legal. It's absolutely legal. It's should or should they not do it? And I'll speak for just myself, as I've already said, is that for me, the issue is there a public need that's being filled? I don't personally, and this is my own bias, even though I live in a historic home that was built in 1735, I don't see the historic need for a large nonprofit. I don't. That's not a public need. Where I do see a public need is in a housing unit that we're trying to house members of the public, people that have economic issues. That's a big, but that's just me, one of 11 people, and we'll go from there. Mr. Moriarty.
Chairman, just very briefly, for me, you raise policy issues that are best left to the council and are way above my pay grade. But I would urge you to just look
Pay's
at
not
it.
that high.
Just look at it from this narrow legal perspective on a case-by-case basis. The CPC may only, and I'm just making we may only recommend public funding for public purposes. That is all we may do. That is our primary focus, and the public purposes are further defined, as Jane and everybody on the committee knows, by is it historic preservation, open space, public housing, or recreation. So we are mandated to promote those factors and assign values to the applications, but we only authorize public funding for public purposes. It is
I
an
appreciate it.
ancillary consideration to us whether the entity is the city or a nonprofit. All we do, and Jane makes us do this on every application, is how do you have a right to ask for this? Do you have an ownership interest in the property? And that must be by deed, and it's usually by municipal deed or by way of deed to a nonprofit.
I agree.
It's public funding for public purposes.
I greatly appreciate that clarification, Mr. Moriarty. And for the legal definition of public purpose, I take that at your word, and I agree with it. When I was speaking about public purpose, that's my own head, okay? And I admit that. I mean, it's what I think is appropriate. And for Emerton House, no question in my mind. And we've had other Councilor Milo raise some questions as well about nonprofits, so I appreciate that. Any further questions, Councilor Dibble?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. On that clarification you just offered, Mr. Moriarty, and while we're having this bigger discussion, and I'm voting in favor, unless I hear something different, voting in favor of Emerton House tonight. But, Ms. Moriarty, the Boston Street project that was recently approved, how would that fit into the categories they just stated?
Public housing.
The Harbor Light
Yes.
project, that's under community housing. So it's creating housing units.
But it's private property. It's not public housing.
They will have a affordable housing restriction. So they have to guarantee in perpetuity that those units remain affordable.
But it's still private housing,
It's private nonprofit.
It's a nonprofit, yes.
right? It doesn't fit into that category that you just stated, public housing.
It does,
It's-
Councilor.
It does.
Well, it does.
The statute, the original statute, and what we adopted was specifically aimed as one of the four pillars of the CPA. One of the four pillars is community housing. And community housing consists of nonprofits who provide that service. It's not just the Salem Housing Authority, for example, which is a public housing agency, but it would be the Community Development Corporation, as well as Harbor Light, are two examples locally that we have for nonprofits. And then Emerton, while technically this is a historic
Resource.
demarcation to redo the outside, I mean, the function of that the nonprofit that's before us tonight is housing.
I agree.
And just one reaction, one way that it helps me understand it, if I may, through you, Mr. Chair, to the council's question. For example, because, as Jane points out, this burden is on this property in perpetuity, the city is obtaining a value because that becomes public housing in perpetuity. And also, the owner has a burden. I'm not denying anybody an opportunity to make a profit, but certainly we can understand that public housing, whether it's owned by the city or by a private not-for-profit, has a different value in the marketplace. So if you were to put that up for sale, the property is burdened by the fact that it's a public housing project and it's not going to bring as much in the open market. That's just the nature of that real estate in perpetuity. So whoever is accepting that money understands that that's the way it goes, and that is a burden that we will have in perpetuity, so we're not going to be able to turn that over and make a smart profit, and too bad about the people who are using it for public property. That's not going to happen, because Salem has a piece of the rock of that property in perpetuity for those number of units. But I think, Mr. Chairman, there are other units that are not so burdened.
So let's open this up to the public. I saw this gentleman's hands up first, and then Ms. Koffel.
Tim Shea, member of the CPC. Just two things. I think the process is working as it was designed. I believe we've turned down more private non-profit proposals. Obviously, as some of you have said, we've vetted them pretty well, and we haven't supported most of them. If you pick the ones that we thought were appropriate, including within the House of Seven Gables, I think, we approved one project, but they have come in front of us for two or three at least more that we've turned down. And the second thing, and maybe Jane can explain it a little better than I can, to answer Councilor Hibble's question about putting money away. And I'm a proponent of that. I've spoken in public committee meetings about that, more for acquisition of land, though, than housing, in my opinion. But there is another process where we might be able to do bigger things like bonding certain things in the future, by taking a chunk of our money and actually creating a bond for some sort of a larger purchase. And again, that's a simple explanation. So overall, I think things are working pretty well.
Thank you, Mr. Shep. Ms. Koffel.
I want to thank the members of the committee for what I hear is support for our project. If we don't take care of the outside of the project, there won't be an inside. So we won't have housing for our folks. And we, in the larger, I know that in the larger scale of things, what is being recommended to the council for funding for Emerton House isn't a lot of money, but to us, it is a very large amount of money, and will do an enormous amount to preserve that historic structure that is now 205 years old. We're going way back in time. So we need to keep in mind as a board the need for making sure that our property reflects the community in which we live, and also reflects the city of Salem in the best possible way.
Any other comments from the public or from councilors? Yes, sir. If you could just identify yourself.
I'm Hale Braun. My wife is a member of Women's Friends Society, and she may have something to say. My comment is simply vis-a-vis the large nonprofits that may not really need that money. In order to make that distinction, I'm very comfortable with having a committee, the CPA committee, of citizens in our city make that judgment as to whether this amount of money is going to really make a difference or not. And I think that's why I would bet PEM won't get many grants from them, and big places like Emerton House will.
Councilor Sargent.
I would also say that it prevents the city of Salem from having to own such a building and maybe not take as good care of it as they are. So I think this board and the people who run it probably get a much larger bang for their dollar than we would as a city when you count their salaries for staff. They're very modest, the amount of volunteers they have, and just that feeling of ownership that comes with owning that one building versus large housing projects around the city. So it does, in essence, it takes a large burden away from the city, allowing them to do this. So, and I have a tremendous faith in the members of the CPC Commission. I know none of them grew up with silver spoons and they understand these kind of things, and, you know, so I'm glad they're there. Can I ask one question
Yeah,
too
absolutely.
on the different, are we able to put any money away, as Councilor Dibble asked, are we able to build up a kitty as?
Yes. The short answer is yes. The committee does not have to recommend using all of the funding. And in the last 2 years, it hasn't recommended all the funding. This year, they actually went almost to the full kitty, but the last couple of years, they did not recommend all of the funding. And there has been some discussion amongst the board members at our meetings about whether we should have sort of a rainy day fund or not. With housing projects, those are usually very complex funded projects. They're usually, a couple $1 million projects or more, that they get funds from various different sources, and we're doing one now with North Shore CDC that got a small amount of CPA money, I think 93,000, small in terms of this is a $10 million project, that having the local seed money is what encourages DHCD and other developers and such to invest. So you only need a small amount of local money to get affordable housing, and the city doesn't build it. The Housing Authority hasn't applied for any CPA money. And then there is also the option of bonding. But yes, we can hold money if we choose to. There happened to be this year, there were a lot of projects, a lot of them were rated high, ranked high, and I think all but one of the high proposals was awarded funding, and several were carried over, and at least one was outright denied.
Can I ask one other part of that? It's like, say the money's all been given out and we're 6 months away from, giving it out and getting money next year, and something comes up. There's an acre of land that comes up for sale that's adjacent to a city park that this committee would love to get, but there's no money left in the committee.
We would then be talking to Sarah, she stepped up. We would be talking to the finance department about bonding.
Would they be able to bond it and then, get the money from the following year's funds?
I don't know how bonding works. Sarah would have to answer that.
Because there is a situation that could come up, and I don't want to mention the piece of land, but it's something that if that happened, it would be a shame to lose it for 3 months. If the committee decided they wanted it, we might want to all co-sign the loan ourselves to get it and get reimbursed, if something like that comes up. But just hoping we can do that if it happens.
And that is precisely Mr. Shea's point. He is a proponent of having funding available.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Just as a side note question to that, Ms. Guy, you mentioned the CDC receiving seed money. Am I correct in saying that the Harbor Light application is also seed money?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a very small drop in the bucket.
But it's part of the formula for lending that
Exactly.
Harbor Light's looking to get from
Need to
other
show
lenders
local
and
support.
grants, et cetera. Councilor Dibble.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And through you, I guess, Ms. Guy, can we request through you, if we can shed clarification both to the council and to the committee? And I thank my good friend, Mr. Shea, for speaking up on the bonding I hadn't even thought about, so that's a good way. And I appreciate the comments about that he's in favor of possibly rolling it over when it's applicable, when it should happen. But could you have Sarah give an update, if you would, on what rollover is allowed? Is there a certain percentage, or is it 100% of the different categories? Is it broken down at all? So if we were choosing to roll it over, and then secondly, on the bonding side as well, what is allowed and what is not allowed? Is there a cap, that type of thing?
As far as the carryover, what happens is you set a budget of 10% in each of the categories, as the board is, the CBC has recommended. When we give you these funding recommendations, it actually says where it's coming out. So the order that you have that was submitted, that you voted on most of it, actually came out of those categories. So we've already spent the required 10% in all the categories. So this winds up sitting in what's called a budgeted reserve. So it has no effect on when we carry it over, what category it has to go in, because we've already spent our minimums, which is why we choose to do just the minimum, 10% in each, so that we have the flexibility of where to spend that money in the future, whether it's this year or carryover.
Okay, but with regard to bonding specifically, if we can get her opinion as to what we can do and how many years we can spread the CPA monies out to pay back that bond?
She actually did do an example, and I don't think I have it with me. I don't think I have it with me. But she did, because there was discussion about doing some small projects that way, and the conclusion was it's best for larger projects. But she did do a spreadsheet that actually, how it would work out, and I can certainly get that for you.
Yeah, the $50,570 is, to me, it's a large amount of money. And to Emberton, it's a large amount of money. It's going to help them. But if we have a way of having $1 million and be able to, like the good counselor at large just stated, to buy something or to protect something, that's my idea, a bigger idea of the CPA, rather than a whole bunch of small issues. Let's protect something before it's gone. I don't know what we're trying to protect yet, but if the issue comes up, it's nice to have that information and know that we can go to CPA and bond for 20 years and pay back a little bit at a time over the 20 years, or whatever the numbers are, to get that clarification both to the committee and to the council. That might have a bigger impact for these tax dollars.
Anything further from the committee or members of the public? Mr. Vino.
Matt Vino, 20 Forest Avenue, member of the CPC. Just want to say a couple of things. One, I want to chime in on what Tim said, which is that I think the process really is working and reflecting a lot of the back and forth conversation that you've been having here this evening actually reflects a lot of what we weighed, and I would tell you that we really are good stewards of the public dollar. I think sitting in on any of these meetings, you would take that as a takeaway. On the issue of that Councilor Sargent raised, Councilor Dibble also weighed in on around kind of planning for that unanticipated opportunity that may come along. I've actually had some conversations with the finance director and Jane about how we could sort of create that little kitty over time. And it sounds like it's as simple as sort of leaving some portion of every year's income unexpended and let that accumulate over time. I'd actually raised the idea of possibly doing like a stabilization fund, setting maybe a higher threshold for the vote of the CPC to expend from that for a particular purpose, much the way you all do or can do for a stabilization fund. Doesn't sound like that's really within the realm of the possible, whether that's allowed by state law. But I know it's certainly on my mind, and I suspect on the minds of some of my colleagues, to start to prepare for those kinds of opportunities. Certainly bonding will always be an opportunity, but leaving aside some portion of every year's income for that opportunity down the road that we can't foresee yet, I think is a great idea. One of the things that I think about a lot in my it hasn't even been a year that I've been on the CPC, is when we're talking about bonding and for that big project, it brings to mind for me, like, what's the difference, what's the unique value add from the CPC that distinguishes it from what the city could bond for using your own bonding authority today? So, as Councilor Sargent mentioned, there could be that tract of land that's next to a park. There's nothing that prevents the city from also taking on that role and bonding for it. It wouldn't get the benefit, I suppose, of being able to use the state matching funds for that purpose. But I often think, like, how does what we do on the CPC complement what the city can and does do in a lot of the same areas of our focus? We talk a lot about kind of public facilities and beautifying and maintaining public facilities. That's also a role that the city should play in its own capital budget. So I'm not entirely clear, and it's partly because I'm new, but like how those two fit together. How does what we do with our funds, this taxpayer funds, state and local tax funds, complement what you all can do through the capital budget? I don't know what the answer is, but I think it's an interesting dialogue to have. Okay.
Councilor Milo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, just a question for Jane. Can the city also put in its own monies to derive some of the state match on its own?
Yes, and you actually did the first year of the city council.
Yeah. So if an opportunity did come up, we would have the opportunity, the option to be able to put some money in and to get a piece of the match, and then to, like, say the kitty was short $100,000 or something, I'm just saying.
I don't know how that actually works. I think Sarah would have to explain that.
So it sort of works like that. The city did match the first year, and we found that because the state match was not as high as we anticipated, that the city match was being accounted for twice, essentially. So we had to report it as income as part of the CPA surcharge, and then we also had to report it as an expenditure. So it was a little bit tricky accounting purposes-wise with the state in terms of how we put that, quote, matching money aside that wasn't really matching money when it came down to it. So you could, in theory, supplement the CPA budget with capital improvement funds or short-term CIP funds, but that would be a decision the council would have to make, whether or not you'd want to parcel off that money to be recognized as part of the CPA.
But do we get the state match on that money?
Up to a certain threshold, yes.
Yeah, you do. You do get a percentage of it.
You mean like up to a certain amount that we put in? Like, there might be like a $100,000 cap on the match, right?
Right,
On
but I
funds
mean,
that
the
can
other
be
part is
matched.
once that city funded, so say the city made the decision to put $100,000 towards CPA, the city would not be able to say, giving that money to the CPA committee, that it has to go for a city project. It would be up to the CPAC committee to determine where that money gets expended.
There will be additional funding coming in from Footprint as part of the agreement, so there's some money coming in the future too, hopefully.
Yep.
Councilor Dibble.
Yeah, thank you for coming, Ms. Stanton.
Yeah.
We had just asked a couple questions that you can answer, but before we get to that, why, I gotta have to ask, why, if we're making park improvements and doing these other things that are CPA eligible, why don't we take the general funds and put them into CPA and leverage the maximum amount so we can make even more improvements?
So that's, I think, a much larger policy question, Counselor. We have limited resources, right? We've been talking about that the entire budget process. There keeps being this discussion about taxpayer funds. This is all taxpayer funds. CPA surcharge is taxpayer funds. Money going into the general fund is taxpayer funds, funded by property taxes. This is all public funds. So if the city council made the decision to, I would assume it would have to be short-term CAP money, because I don't think we would have the capacity within the existing general fund to leverage such significant resources. But if the city made the determination of, we want to take $200,000 of our short-term CIP money, which a portion of that does get parceled out from free cash, and give that to the CPC for their option to do sort of more projects, we could, but this is not something where we would not want to be taking general fund revenue to divert to the CPC at this time.
Yeah, I'm wondering, when Salem first tried to pass the CPA years ago, I was in favor of it, but it got shot down. And this last time, there was a sign on my front lawn supporting the CPA for months and months. And I encouraged a heck of a whole lot of my neighbors to support this as well. But if there's, and Salem jumped on the bandwagon way late in the whole process. Other cities and towns had been receiving these funds at a higher percentage for a whole number of years. And a lot of those funds dried up a little bit, and Salem enters way late in the process. I'm wondering if there's a lot of other cities and towns that are taking their capital improvement monies, putting it into CPA. The boards are voting for these projects, but they're leveraging additional state monies.
So
Briefly.
You're leveraging additional state monies in the sense that your reimbursement, if you're putting $1 million in, you're getting reimbursed the same percentage, but you're getting more money matched back from the state. I think that the system is, and this is probably a question better served for the mayor, because it's a much larger question than we're talking about here, but from a strictly financial perspective, I think it seems to work between establishing a CPC budget, establishing a capital improvement budget. There's all sorts of great arenas in which projects citywide are being funded, both private and public.
I don't mean to short circuit, but yes, I kind of do mean to short circuit the conversation here. We have, I believe, a consensus, and we'll have a formal vote. We have a consensus on passage of Emerton. This is a very valuable conversation, but given the fact that we have other budget items that we need to address, my suggestion would be to all councilors on this is that after budget season, say in July, that this conversation be brought in on, with a new order, and we have either this conversation as a group and invite the CPC, invite our finance director, the mayor, Ms. Guy, to have this continuing discussion when we have more time. But so I apologize for cutting this discussion short tonight, but we literally do have an agenda list that I know we have other items that we need to get through. So without objection, unless there's just really salient points on this, I'll entertain a motion. Councilor Gerard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move for approval of the preserving the Emerton House roof order number 340 in the amount of $50,650.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Gerard and seconded by Councilor Dibble. Just writing this down. For approval of number 340, the CPA funding for Emerton House. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
No.
Matter carries 4-1.
Take a recess?
Yeah, let's take, I'll entertain a motion to recess for 2 minutes. Councilor Gerard?
I move that we recess for 2 minutes.
We're adjourned. We're recessed. Our 2 minutes are up. So we're back on. Now we're back on the record with our budget hearings now, and we'll welcome back to the dais our phenomenal finance director, Sarah Stanton. And pursuant to the agenda, we have our city clerk, city council, and elections. So Ms. LaPointe. Cheryl, I'm sorry I'm sitting in your chair.
It's okay. It's probably more comfortable than what I was sitting in.
A little different deal.
All right. And this is number 2. Number 2. Thank you, Counselor. All right, Cheryl, welcome. And either you, Cheryl, and actually the mayor is now joining us as well. But Ms. LaPointe, Mayor Driscoll, welcome. And Ms. Stanton, welcome as well. We'll begin with you to have any opening comments, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Starting with me, right?
Sure.
Okay. Are we starting with the city council? Okay. First of all, I noticed,
Let's do, what do we have first? Is it?
City council.
Is city council up first? Okay, fair enough.
Us.
okay. On the, one of the 2 things that I noticed that were in error on the council's budget was that I neglected to change the names of the councilors. So there are 3 councilors missing from the list, and the number should have been 12,000 for each councilor, not 10. It was changed last year. Oddly enough, the total amount comes out right, but it's not right up the top. It's 12,000 per councilor, 12,500 for the president.
So I made that change, and all counselors were given updated budget pages, so you should have that either on your desk from last week or in your booklet now.
Okay. All right, that's good.
And not a huge issue for me, but my last name is E-P-P-L-E-Y, not Y. So, and I don't know if that's...
I didn't print this.
Understood.
Thank you, Joe.
So that's particularly the only changes that are really taking place on this. One thing that I noticed, though, the advertising keeps tickling up. So, I mean, we've had some pretty big ordinances come before us, and all the bonds need to be also advertised first and second passage. So, hopefully, this won't be depleted like it was this year. contracted services is still 0 because it was moved. And then the printing and binding, I noticed it was cut by $1,000. But we'll have to make do, I guess. And it looks like everything was held the same except for the salaries. Does anyone have any questions about the councils?
Councilor Gerard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just quickly, under one of your goals and objectives, the 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth one down, the putting the minutes of the recording. What is it?
That's one thing I wanted to look into, if we could make a way to connect somehow to SATV through our website, so that you would have the option, like there is another city or town that in the atmosphere there that has a way of connecting. So I thought if we could do that, people would have the choice to either read the written material or actually watch the meeting. You know, create a link somehow.
Yeah.
I thought that might be a nice idea, because more and more people are using the website, so
Yeah, I think
that's something I have to try to hash out with the IT people and SATV and see if there's a way that they can create a link somehow, so that people can also link to the watching of it and as well as be able to read it.
That would be great. And then if I
got the
may, so under your outcomes and performance measures, so what are the council records processed? What step, does that mean like for on page 11, below the C-worm licenses, so it says council records processed. So then it was some in the 700s, and then it dropped down. I'm guessing that it's down to 400 because we haven't finished the year yet. So does that?
Right.
What are what are the council records? Is that like each agenda item?
Every agenda item is processed.
Okay, thank you.
Like
That's
the
good.
day after a council meeting, we start processing. There are certain things that were approved by council have to be made ready for the mayor for the following Monday for her signature, which allows her 10 days to sign an order or an ordinance. And there are multiple steps to every order or ordinance or whatever came before the council, whether it's putting it into committee. There's a process for everything. So it usually takes a couple of days to complete all the processing. And then that's the amount of records that were processed that particular year.
Okay, and then one more question. This may actually be a Sarah question. Under the operating budget, so for the city council expenses, it says negative 39.86%.
Oh, I see it, yeah.
Yeah. That doesn't seem possible.
What page number is it show?
I'm sorry, it's page 12.
Yeah, it's 12 in your book.
Just an error, Beth, we can check it.
Okay.
Read it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Further questions, just under the city council portion among councilors? Councilor Dibble.
Being the only new counselor, sworn in about 5 months ago, I want to say it's an absolute privilege working with you. I like the approach that you take. And the steps that you've taken in February and March to try to reduce some of the paper is well received by me. The amount of paper that I have a desk at home, and 5 months worth of council meetings, I have over 2 feet of paper. It's amazing the amount of paper. So anything you can do to keep reducing that, I will encourage and promote. And again, it's you bring a high level of honesty, integrity, and friendship, and the way that you've nurtured me in my first 5 months, I really appreciate it. So thank you.
You're welcome. There's one more thing that wasn't mentioned on by goals and objectives. Your council furniture is getting repaired this summer. No more saggy chairs, no more loose wheels. One by one, they'll be disappearing out of the chamber, and hopefully they stay here. once they're fixed. But little by little, I found someone who worked at the PEM doing custom stuff for antiques and all, and she's going to be taking them this August a little at a time to repair them. So hopefully by next fall, mostly all your chairs will be better.
Thank you.
It's about time, because if we don't do it now, we're going to lose them.
And that's a great question, actually, to ask, is where is that reflected within your budget?
It's not. It's
Okay.
coming out of, what I was going to do is take it out of, we have an election fund where there's money in case, and I was going to use some of that money to try to fix some of the council's broken chairs.
So we'll come to elections in a second, and I've got some, because I anticipate, especially if we have 2 polling sites, given early voting, that there will be extra costs, and so I'm leery about using what's budgeted for election for furniture, and so I'd rather see if there's a line item for furniture that we have that, you know. So is there an estimate as to what?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
She's come around and she's making her list.
Okay, great.
Checking it twice.
Any other questions from councilors on the city council portion of the clerk's budget? Okay, let's move on then to city clerk proper.
Okay.
For your budget.
Well, one of the things about the city clerk's office is we had a woman leave, and we were able to hire another woman. She is bilingual and is a great asset to the office. She's helped immensely with situations that have arisen. Although we may be losing her for a short time in the fall, she'll be back, I'm sure. But she's been a great asset, and I hope she stays for years to come.
And that is, I'm sorry.
Her name is Jeanette.
Jeanette.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yep, she's a very hard worker, very easy to get along with, you know, very user-friendly, and she's been a great asset. So, her name, I can't think of her last name, my mind just isn't there. But the other thing with this is every year, like clockwork, I put in, you know, to try to bring Eileen's salary up with equal people that are in that position. She's in a grade 12. And a couple of years ago, the min-max for her grade 12 was 50,000 to 55 when she was at 53. Well, being the fact that she's now here 16 years, my thought process is that she should be at her top step. And other people have come into the city less than a year and are making beyond what she's making in that still grade 12. So, you know, every year I try to get her boosted up to where I think she should be, at least equal to other grade 12s.
I have, first of all, I'll open up any questions among councilors about the city clerk's budget. I have a couple. We had Matt Killen and the IT department present last night for their budget hearing, and some of the questions that I asked of Matt were concerning digitizing Salem, the city of Salem in general, but also about opportunities within the city clerk's office for digitizing records. And one of the things that I'm wondering is, presuming that that record keeping is compliant with the Secretary of State's office, and compliant with, you know, in concert with the city solicitor, making sure that we're following all the laws and crossing Ts and dotting Is, because no one questions from my experience, your meticulousness on this. If we have funds in place, and it's not in this budget, but if we have funds in place for an electronic document organizing program for the clerk's office, and there's proper training by IT or whomever else to get your staff up to speed on that, is that something that you're open to?
Yes, but state law mandates that I have a hard copy of everything. Right now, for instance, the birth records and the death records are online with the state. And when you need a copy of a recent birth or death, and they're starting to put some of the older records in so that we can create a record right off the computer. But state law mandates that you also have that hard copy on file. Do you see what I'm saying? So no matter what we do, we always have to have paper.
Okay.
Until the state law changes that, we're always going to have a paper copy.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we could create a yard sale, no problem, offline, you know what I mean? That's nothing. But the certain things and including the council records, there has to be a hard copy. I mean, it might be easier in some respects. Like, a lot of people think technology is the end-all answer. In some ways, it does speed things up. I admit it, I like certain things about technology. I love being on a computer and being able to research things. But, for instance, the fact that we put on everything on our website for meeting notices and agendas, our office is kind of unique in the sense that most boards and commissions or whatever only have to do it once a month. We're doing it every week. I mean, we're probably going to crash the system at some point because we do so much, with committees and agendas and minutes and everything else. So, and it takes a lot longer than it did before to post a meeting notice, where before we would do one page, list all the different meetings, and put it on the old website, and we were done. Now, there are multiple steps, and you can't put all the meetings on one page. Each one has to be done individually because you're creating an event on the website, so each one has to be individual. So it's a lot more paper, it's a lot more time. Do you see what I'm saying? So in as much as it's wonderful to have technology, sometimes it's not an exact fit. And maybe this would be the end-all wonderful thing to digitize. I don't know, I haven't seen enough about it.
Okay.
But in respect to everything else, you still, by law, have to have a hard copy.
Question related to city census forms that are sent out on an annual basis. Are those required to be in a hard copy form?
Yes.
So there's not.
How else would an 80-year-old woman get her census form?
I'm not questioning an 80-year-old woman.
You know what I mean? Census
what
forms
about,
go out.
But what about a 45-year-old computer savvy person?
How do you distinguish who can?
Cheryl, let me finish my question. What about a computer savvy person? If there's an ability to, for example, fill out a census form online, it could, and record that in some electronic way to then print out a completed census form, it would eliminate at least for, I'll make up a number, let's say even if we eliminated a third of the mailings in the process, wouldn't that help?
But that's not how it works. But that's not how it works.
Okay.
When we send it out, what would we do? Send a message and wait to see who responds?
Perhaps, I'm just throwing out an idea, perhaps if there's pre-notice where you go online and you fill out the form online, and that for anyone who hasn't filled it out by X date, then those are mailed out to anyone who hasn't responded.
Now you've lost a lot of months, and now those things are coming in later, and you're trying to get everything in your system by a certain date, because after that certain date, you have to inactivate by law. So you're chasing the tail of the devil with a census form. you know? I would love to be able to do things more online, but the system that you would be doing it, would you be probably sending it through an email, number one? That same form we'd have to copy off, because you have to have a hard copy, and then we have to update the state system, which is a totally different system than the city's. If you notice in room 5, there's 2 computers. One is a state computer, the other is a city computer. So, I mean, never say never. Maybe somebody has come up with a better plan. None of the clerks have talked about it, though. And usually there's chatter.
All right. Any other questions on the city clerk-related budget? We'll have elections in just a second, but Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question on your, where is this? On your goals and objectives on the second page on 16, about the project going through the retention schedule to free up space for records. Project will be ongoing throughout 2015. Is the project still going on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we had to put a halt because we got busy with...
You had to put what?
We had to put a halt on the process because from January to a certain month, we were kind of busy with other things, so it takes time away from the office work. And we've got things started, but we still have a long way to go.
Okay, and then the next one, the archival supply line is increased. Notice there's a 10% increase in births and deaths in 2015. Was that supposed to say 2016?
What was the question?
So the next bullet point, archival supplies line is increased due to cost increase for materials, and we've noticed already there is a 10% increase in births and deaths in 2015.
Yep.
Is that because there wasn't a 10% increase this year?
No,
So-
not yet, but we're not done with this year, but...
I mean, for this
it could have
budget
been
request.
the fact that we had a long winter the year before.
Okay. So this is correct that there's a 10% increase in births and deaths in 2015? Okay.
If there aren't any other questions, Councillor Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Cheryl, you began a discussion about your assistant clerk, and we kind of switched subjects right away, but I'd like to kind of put resolution, or at least discuss the issue that you were beginning to discuss. It looks like she's getting the same raise this year that pretty much everybody else in the city is getting, in the same range. So I guess I'd like to ask, why do you think it should be more? Maybe the mayor can help you address it as well, if need be?
Because if the range, let's say the range is for a grade 12, 50 to 55,000, and she's been here for 16 years, 12 of them out of as an assistant, okay, 12 of those 16 years. She should be at the top of her game. Someone comes in off the street in a grade 12 and they're making more than her. It's kind of like, what am I doing here? You know, I'm working my tail off for years, and yet someone comes off the street making more than me at the same grade. That's the argument. You know, you try to keep your good help, and you know, she loves her work. She's dedicated to it. She would do anything to work with me or work for me. And you just try to make it fair, a level playing ground. And that's all that is. And that's why I ask every year, is just to make sure that, things are fair. You know, if you're gonna hire someone off the street and give them $55,000, and here she is here for 16 years doing 53, you know what I mean? It's just the way it looks, you know? And I'm just trying to be fair to her. As her supervisor, I have to try to be fair.
So is it a need to change the title, to change the grading, if you would? Because the raise, I don't know what the raises were in past years, but the raise is equal to what everybody else is getting.
I know that. It's 2.5%. My point is, again, that, people coming in off the street for the same grade are making more than someone who's been here for 16 years. And people have gotten more than 2.5% raises in the past. So I was just trying to help her get along.
I don't know, Mayor, if you can help answer this question, but I'm not sure if the position should be in a different category or what, to be able to bring it up to an equal pay rate, I guess, where the city clerk is saying that it should be. I don't know enough about it.
Lower seat here. So, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to offer some feedback and perspective on how we've gone about looking at raises. I think I shared this with each of you during prior budget hearings. When it comes to exempt employees, we've typically done salary surveys every year. We've done them this year as well to look at individual positions that are exempt. It's a little hard sometimes to compare exactly apples to apples, as I may have mentioned in the past, because there are different responsibilities that go with many jobs, even though they may have the same title among communities. So the exact nature of the assistant DPW director in our community may be different than, for instance, the exact nature of the position someplace else. We do try and look at that and have in the past given increases above the norm, meaning above, generally we try and follow what we're rewarding to our union employees, and there have been years where that has been less, there have been years where that has been more, depending upon the quality of the work and depending upon the availability of funding. In this particular instance, I know that we have gone and looked at what exempt employees are making, and in the past, and within the last 3 to 5 years, I don't know the exact date, we did bump up this position slightly more, with the higher degree to try and bring it in line with what we're seeing across the trend. We have granted increases every year, and this year 2.5%, last year I think it was 2%. So if you start looking at that trajectory, this position is not out of line with respect to the other salary survey communities that we have for the range of work that goes on. This position also receives a stipend. And I want to say, I guess I should have said this at the beginning, this has nothing to do with the individual, who I know personally and consider to be very high quality, very conscientious, does great work. And we're very fortunate that we have a number of employees that work in our community, a number of exempt employees who really go above and beyond, as well as folks who, work every day on the front line. So I really do want to take out sort of the personalities or the individuals with respect to the approach to salaries and where they stand. But we are trying to be fair and consistent, and I've heard some commentary about people coming in. Positions are very different when you're going out in the market. We look at the salary survey. We did bump up this position within the last 3 to 5 years with a higher increase, and we are anticipating giving a 2.5% increase this year. This position also receives a stipend I believe it's for covering some of the council activity on top of the general salary. That's certainly different than other folks in the grade 12, and that grade 12, the assistant treasurer, the assistant city solicitor. So, I don't know why the assistant city solicitor position is a grade 12, because that frankly is a law degree, a little bit higher degree of timeline that's here. And so I would say to you that the grade 12 may not be consistent necessarily amongst all of these positions. These were grades that existed prior to me coming here. But we do try and look at positions, look at the salary survey, and make decisions to hopefully keep employees here, maintain good employees, attract quality employees when somebody leaves. When I first became mayor, we were not giving raises to department heads, to exempt employees. We had a number of positions that were well below threshold requirements and similar positions elsewhere. We used to lose talent, frankly, all the time, and then we'd pay more when we had to hire. We had somebody good, and they'd leave, and then we had to hire somebody at a higher rate. You know this, because you've been around here as well. That's not a good policy to have. So while I understand employers like to advocate for employees, and we have a number of department heads who advocate for their staff, it's also my job to be fair and consistent as we approach this work. And we look at the salary survey, we take into consideration where folks are at, and we try and make decisions that are in the best interest of the community. Every year, if I went back and looked at raises, they've been at least 2 to 2.5% every year for this position. So That's certainly been an increase in this position, I think, every single year, and other positions within our community. So, it's, like I said, it's nothing personal, and frankly, I don't really like having a conversation and open about a person that we all know and their salary who's doing good work. I've shared this with the city clerk in our budget discussions. I've shared this with the council president in budget discussions, and I appreciate the advocacy, and we're trying to do what's in the best interest of all our exempt employees when we're looking at many of whom are working hard, and when we're doing this work.
Mayor, just as a follow-up and looking at 30,000 feet, not for this position, but 30,000 feet, when you're looking to increase a professional employee to at a larger, with a raise that's larger than the cost of living raise that's across the board, 2.5%. Am I correct that what you might look to in that kind of raise, that you're looking for added tasks that would be added to that the job description for that person?
I would say there have been times when employees, department heads or exempt employees have gotten a higher raise, and that's because they were taking on more responsibilities. We are setting goals for all of our senior staff and trying to achieve those goals so we can have in evaluating that performance as well. I think that's an area that we would love to see. As we had the conversation, I forget which budget, maybe it was HR, we're bringing that same kind of approach in line with all of our collective bargaining agreements, so we can have healthy dialogue around where we see some really great work and where we see some room for growth. And that is certainly something that we hope to see all department heads moving forward with as well.
Because I see, and this is just one counselor of 11, but I see a potential larger project for the clerks, for the city clerk's office, for a digitizing program at some point, whether it's this year, next year, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it might be. Yep. Is that kind of a larger special project something in your estimation that might warrant a bump up in salary for, if the assistant clerk was tasked with that special project? Yep. Would that be something that you would look to?
Yeah, I mean, I think if there are additional responsibilities, and I don't mean, we've got more phone calls than we had, or the things that fall, within the scope of the existing job, something that's being added on as an additional work, we certainly would look at that. And I don't, again, this individual works really hard. I think that the person does great work, so it's not a reflection of the quality or the quantity of the work that's going on. But if there were added responsibilities, I think that would certainly cause us to, take a look at that and work with the city clerk on it.
Councilor Fury.
Mr. Chairman, sincerely, as the Dean of the City Council, I expect nothing less from Cheryl LaPointe, our city clerk, than advocating for her assistant city clerk for a raise to compensate for her public duties. And as she stated, if a person came in to the city of Salem today, could get the same salary that she has been working at for the last 12 years. The last 4 of the 5 mayors that I have served under have come from the city council. We all appreciate the role and responsibility of the city clerk and the assistant city clerk. They are non-union personnel. I asked at a previous budget meeting this week whether in fact, I asked the mayor and the finance director that when it comes down to the 2.8 raise, is the assistant city clerk and the city clerk getting it? Basic question. And that is a basic question, sincerely, by the city clerk we have the responsibility, sincerely, Mayor, right, as the city council, for 2 primary, resourceful, professional individuals. So this is the platform. This is the conversation for her to raise that up. And I don't see an answer to that. If someone can come in today, Mayor, sincerely, I disagree with you, can come in and make the same salary, hello, I don't see the reason.
So let me provide a little bit of a context to it, right?
This is a conversation, budget time, to do that. And it's right time, sincerely.
So let me have that conversation with you, Counselor. So for the city clerk, assistant city clerk survey that we conducted this year of salaries, the average salary ran from $55,266 to $62,869. Sorry, my eyesight's getting worse than it is. The city clerk's salary, the assistant city clerk's position salary in total is $56,659. That's right in the middle of the range. We did not find them, when we made bump up and increases, it was when people were below the average. The average was 50. as I just said, 55.2 to 62. We're at 56, and I don't know what, with the raise on top of that, another 2.5% on top of that, the number will certainly exceed that amount. So, with all due respect, I appreciate your perspective, and I'm trying to share mine in how we came up with setting salaries for exempts. This year, we did not increase any of the exempt salaries beyond the 2.5%, mimicking what we provided to union employees, because we did not find that we had a range of exempt positions that fell below the average of the salary survey. That's what's driving that decision.
But sometimes we have to make an exception. In fact, this board made an exception on the raise to the mayor. I made a request for the increase over the years, different administrations, for an increase in the mayor's salary, and it's been bumped up every so often. And it's been bumped up to $120,000. I recommended at a subcommittee meeting a $5,000 raise. Another city councilor, who's no longer here, Councilor Siegel, made it to $120,000. He made the exception, bumping it up. He said, yes, I think we should bump it up, not $5,000, Councilor Fiore, but to $120,000. So I think we should, as a city council, think about doing that, to bump it up to where it should be.
So maybe we have a disagreement on where it should be, because we're also trying to be fair and consistent with assistant building inspectors, assistant collectors, assistant treasurers, and other positions that fell within that range. We could have everybody advocating here. There's a lot of folks who are working hard, and I appreciate the work that goes on in that office. And I'm sharing with you the data that we use to help support our decisions. I hope the council is using data when they're looking at salaries that you set, which happens to be mine.
So Ms. Lapointe wanted to...
Yeah, just to clarify something. On a normal 35-hour week, there are other positions that get stipends because of added duties in their job. The stipends that the clerk's office gets are for the hours spent above and beyond. I mean, if we took the stipends and how many meetings we had, how many hours we put in this chamber preparing and getting ready for a meeting and being here with you, it wouldn't add up to too much. But other positions do get stipends just for the 35 hours. So it's kind of apples and oranges in my viewpoint. Another thing with the salary survey, they're wonderful. I really depend on them. But if you're going to do a survey, you also have to call the clerk's office themselves and say, okay, does the assistant city clerk go to council meetings? Do they get involved in elections? You know, do they have to do the IT work in the office for the websites? There's a lot of different job titles. They're all assistant city clerks, but they do a number of different things. Do you see what I'm saying? We aren't all the same glove. We're different. We all do different things. And when you're comparing salaries to salaries, you have to also ask, what is their job? What do they do? Do they go to council meetings? Do they deal with elections? Do they do vital records if they have to? And most of the time, it's no or maybe yes, you know. And the ones that say yes, those are the ones we should be comparing to.
Councilor Gerard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a point of clarification. So if the mayor's proposing for the assistant $54,183, and then there's another $4,000 on top of that for the stipend for the meetings, correct? So then that's bumping the position up to 58. And okay, so that's correct in looking at it that way. So then,
but the stipend isn't your base salary. If we're talking base salary, you can't talk about the stipends.
Right. Okay. So then, but then going to your point about what some city clerks do, what some city clerks don't do. So, like I know because when my husband and I were getting married, we got our marriage license downstairs, but you guys didn't perform our wedding, or perform our marriage. So, and I know that both of you are justices of the peace. So is that reflected here? Because what happens? I mean, because I know that there have been times that I've stopped by the office and I couldn't go in because there was a wedding being performed, which is really cool to see. But, so what?
It's a service we provide, but it's not part of the city.
Okay.
Per se. By law, we're allowed to be justices of the peace.
Okay.
And it's like having a part-time job outside of here. You're not going to calculate that into your base pay.
But it's done during your hours here.
It's done all hours.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And you told me about that you didn't you do it like Halloween night, midnight or something?
We do.
Okay.
We do them all the time. Josephine Fusco was the last city clerk prior to me that did weddings here all the time. She was the only one who did them. And when she left, she decided that Miss Birkinshaw decided that she didn't really want to deal with weddings. So for a number of years, a good 9 years, there was no weddings being performed in City Hall. It's a choice by a city clerk. Most city clerks choose to do that as a service. For instance, if you go to Danvers Town Hall, there's no one there that's a justice of the peace. They end up coming here, they go to Peabody, they'll go to Beverly, they'll go to wherever there is one.
To ask a follow-up question to that, for those weddings that are conducted during city business hours in City Hall, and I don't fault you for this, or Eileen for that matter for it, but am I correct in stating that you may receive a small remuneration for that wedding that takes place?
Yes, but you have to understand too, I don't take breaks. And sometimes I don't take lunches. So if you figure out how long it takes me to do a wedding without a break in a day, and sometimes without a lunch, how can you fault me for that?
I'm not faulting you at all. I'm just saying but from a budgetary perspective, during those same hours, it's technically the base salary is already covering that time period, right?
Pardon me?
During regular city business hours,
Yeah.
your salary, your base salary is covering that time.
True. But it's not against the law.
Absolutely not. I'm not suggesting it's not.
Oh, sorry, I'm thinking aloud.
Councilor Sargent?
It's also a service to the people. I've been here at 8 o'clock at night when a couple came in a meeting and wanted to get married.
Absolutely.
And we had to explain to them, you have to get a license first and all that. It's a service you're doing for your constituents because that's the time they want to get married. So you could tell them, come back on Saturday, but they, for whatever reason, they don't want to, that's when they want it.
And I know
it's a good service to perform.
it absolutely is a great service. And Cheryl, I know that you will be here on a Friday afternoon after City Hall is closed to ensure that someone who's really wanting to get married, to get their wedding license, to get them married and so forth. So it's undoubted that you provide that extra service, and it's certainly legal. I'm certainly not suggesting it's anything but legal to do.
For every wedding that Eileen and I do for the couple, we pay for their first marriage certificate out of what they give us. So we're trying to give back, and they could probably buy their own, but we're trying to show goodwill, and we take some of the money. We don't have to. I remember when Josephine Fusco was doing it, she would give them long forms, short forms, laminated ones for free and never pay the city a dime, but we will put back in the coffers something for the couple. It's not required, we just do.
Councilor Sargent.
Thank you. Now, as far as any job with a step raise, the reason you have a high and low range is so that eventually most employees figure they're going to make the high range. If you have a job that you start at $50,000 and the range is $50,000 to $60,000, you expect that as you get better and more experience, you'll eventually get to the top range. Now, it might take 10 years. You might get 2.5% raise every year like other non-union employees, but then you would get that $1,000 step raise. The second year, you would get the 2.5% and another $1,000. So now, on the 11th year, you don't get the $1,000. But somebody new coming in is at the bottom of the range, so you're 10 years better in experience than them. That's why you're getting the high range and they're getting the low range. Now, if someone has been here 20 years and someone 30, they're at the same pay because they've that 10 years doesn't make so much difference when you vote when the minimum person's been here 20 years. Well, they should expect that they're not gonna stay at the bottom of that range. And I believe it's, you know, that the city clerk, for the city clerk's office, does the hiring, the evaluating, and the putting in their pay. And it's totally up to the city clerk to decide if her people are worthy or experienced enough to get a raise. And the city clerk should be setting that salary based on the range. You can't go above the range. If the range is $50,000 to $60,000 and over 10 years, if the city clerk wants the assistant city clerk to be at $60,000, I believe that's the city clerk's call. I don't think that's personnel's call. I mean, can you guys touch on that a little bit? I mean, the city clerk runs that office by city ordinance. She evaluates, hires, and decides the salary based on available money by city ordinance. So she should be allowed to give somebody a step raise as she feels their experience warrants.
Councilor Gerard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry, I'm just right about that. I feel like I'm getting more, things seem to be getting fuzzier here. So the weddings are part of your job.
It's like a part-time job.
It's a part-time job.
It's a service we offer that wasn't offered for a long time.
So that's why it's not reflected here.
We don't collect that revenue. That goes directly to the individuals. That does not go into city coffers. They collect that pay directly.
That's right.
Okay. I don't, that just, so it's very, I don't know, I'm kind of, obviously I'm bewildered by this, that.
You're not guaranteed a wedding a week.
No.
You're not guaranteed a wedding a month. I mean, it's random. It's not something you can plan for. It's not like you can say, oh, I'm gonna have 20 weddings this year. You could have one wedding this year. I mean, we've been good because people love to come to Salem. They absolutely go out of their way to travel here from far away because they want to get married here in Salem. They just think Salem is the best place on earth. And for years, it wasn't offered, but they're loving it.
Right.
It's a good thing for the city.
But I guess where my concern is if you're...
It's like a part-time job.
But you're doing it during your full-time hours.
No, I'm doing it after hours too, and I'm doing it on weekends.
Right, but I mean, there have been times that I've come to your office and
I don't take a break, so if I'm doing it on my break time, how can you fault me? I could go to CVS instead of sitting here. It's my break.
Okay.
My lunch.
Okay.
I can do what I want on my break, my lunch.
Okay, so this has nothing to do then with
Has
when
nothing
we're...
to do with this budget.
Okay, nothing to do with this budget, nothing to do with when we look at what happens in the office?
Nope.
Okay.
Anything further on that one?
Well, the question to follow up, Council Sergeant, is why can't a city clerk, under her jurisdiction, set the salary of her own assistant, who she evaluates, and then recommend to the mayor? And that's only that simple. She's asking a request to bump up. That's a simple. It's a no-brainer. Mayor. Over the last, we've heard this argument before. Why not now? Why not
Actually,
resolve it?
I haven't heard this argument before, Counselor. I've had this discussion before with the city clerk around this particular pay set, and I just want to make sure I'm clear and clarifying. In FY14, the assistant city clerk had a 6.4% increase. That was higher that took into account the fact that we looked at the salary survey and we thought there was some room for growth based on conversations with the city clerk about what was going on, and we moved the salary up. FY14. Just got the numbers, I believe, from Munis. So FY14, it was 6.4% increase. FY15, a 2.5% increase. This year in FY16, there'll be a 2.5% increase. The salary proposed in the new budget, FY17, would be $58,183. the range, based on the conversation, the salary survey that we have in other communities, and as I said earlier, it's never exactly apples to apples. There are differences, but we take a range across the board, is 55.2 to 62.8. So we are right in the sweet spot of that range. That was done to accommodate an increase when the city clerk raised the fact that, hey, we're below what we should be. So we also have an assistant collector, an assistant treasurer, other positions that fit within this grade. And I don't think just because this employee reports to the city clerk, we take it out of the context of all of our city hall employees. You are still a City of Salem employee, and we think we've been fair and responsive, but also recognizing that this fits within the umbrella. This is not some outpost. So that's $58,000 plus whatever revenues directly are paid into the assistant city clerk while they perform.
You're including the stipends, though.
I'm including the stipend.
Stipends are not the base pay.
It's money that you're being paid.
It is money, but you don't,
Through
it's
the
not the
chair,
base pay.
through the chair, both of you, through the chair.
It's the total compensation. That's what we look at when we looked at other positions, was total compensation. There are some communities who don't give stipends, who incorporate that work into the salary. There are some who do it by stipends. So we're taking total compensation. That's what that amount is. In fact, it's not complete total compensation because there are payments made to these individuals for work that they do during the day for performing weddings in this building. That's not included in this. No other employee has the opportunity to do that. We do notary services for free. That's one of the things that we do in terms of trying to provide services. So I'm not trying to have a disagreement with the council. I'm giving you the rationale for how we came up with this proposed salary. A 6.4% increase, a 2.5% increase, a 2.5% increase, $58,000 above the mid-range, frankly, right in that sweet spot. We felt like we were being fair, and it's not a reflection of the individual, it's a reflection of the work that we do in trying to professionalize the operations throughout the city. There used to be a time when nobody got raises, no exempt employees. Their games were played with who got one and who did what and who donated to what. We've tried to do away with all of that and professionalize our aspects, looking at salary surveys, trying to make sure we're evaluating people, recognizing what those strengths and weaknesses are, and we were responsive in providing a 6.4% increase the last time this issue was raised. So
I wanted to, let's close out this conversation unless Ms. LaPointe, if you have one, there was some colloquy there that was going on. If you have any sort of response, you're more than welcome to provide that.
I have nothing to lose. I just ask. So I ask all the time, and that's the best I can do. If the answer is no, the answer is no. What do I do? I don't hold the purse strings. I can only ask.
Yeah.
Councilor Sargent.
Yeah, just again, it's like reading the ordinance. It's the city clerk shall annually include in his or her department operating budget adequate funding for merit raises, for that department. To me, that's the city clerk is supposed to put what she feels in that budget, and it's up to the city council to can add to cut or not cut. And I don't think it's up to the executive side to go around evaluating every city clerk in the state and making an average, with all due respect. I think that's the city clerk's office. The administration sets the range, A to Z, 50 to 60,000, $10,000 to $20,000, but based on those parameters, and I'm sure the city clerk acts reasonable, she wouldn't give somebody the high end on a first year hiree. But over the course of 16 years, if she feels that employee should make it from the bottom end to the top end, I believe that's totally her call. She shall set that operating budget and
Council?
future merit increases, and I think that's the city clerk's call for that office on the legislative side.
So I appreciate the at-large councilor's comments. That being said, we have one city budget, and it is set by the executive. On this limited item, perhaps under the ordinance, there's technically the power of the city clerk to set it, but it's up to, as the good at-large councilor noted, even under that circumstance, it's up to the city council to approve it. Because there is nothing before the city council in terms of any specific line item from the city clerk on this issue. We instead have the omnibus city budget. So that's actually not germane to what we have before us with the city budget that's provided by the executive. So we need to stay focused on this. If there's a separate order that a counselor wants to bring and entertain that through this committee at some point, we can have that discussion. But for right now, this is the budget that's been presented by the mayor and her staff, and that's what we have before us to consider. Ms. LaPointe.
It's not saying that the other departments that do have assistants at grade 12 don't deserve them. Everybody in this city works hard. I agree with that. And maybe some people just deserve a little more. I'm not trying to pick a fight. All I'm doing is asking, and that's the best I can do.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Fury.
And that issue has been brought up to Administration and Finance on 2 different chairmans. Present chairman, I asked that situation be brought up, and the former chairman of Ordinances, License, and Legal Affairs, I asked it was not brought up, this issue. Councilor Sargent raised the question. I have tried to bring it up out of committee. I'm not the chairman of that committee. It has not risen to that point. And I bring, if I may.
I'm sorry, apologies.
This city council asked the city solicitor to make a survey of all the salaries of the mayors in a comparable population and around the North Shore, and we looked at that survey. And we decided to up it, this very city council, the mayor's salary. So all I'm saying is, I've asked Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs personally. We've had this issue. It has not risen out of, it's been buried.
There's been nothing to bury, in all due respect to my colleague. If someone wants to bring, if the good at-large, either of the at-large counselors to my right or left, wish to bring an order and bring it into this committee, I'll certainly entertain it, and we would have that hearing. But that's not before us. What we have before us is the 2017 fiscal year budget that's been provided by the mayor's office.
I respect that sincerely. It has been in committee, and it has gotten out of committee.
There's been nothing in this year for 2017 that's been filed.
In a previous situation, carried over.
No, there was actually nothing that carried over from last year from ANF.
Administration Finance. No, Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs.
That might be. I won't speak to that. I'm not on the whole committee.
I've asked 2 different chairmen.
Councilor Dibble.
Yes, I'd like to suggest, if I may, Mr. Chair, that we move on, that if a fellow councilor feels the need to, and I think I would support it, but a need to revisit this as a separate matter, let's get on with the budget, because we're going to be here till about 11 tonight.
Hope not. So last item under the clerk's budget, unless there's further discussion under the clerk herself's budget, then the last item for our clerk is the elections budget, which starts on page 21.
I also wanted to thank the mayor, if I may, seeing I still have the floor, for her explanation. I had asked for an explanation, she gave it. Absolutely right. Thank you for the explanation. I had asked you to clarify and give an explanation, and you did so thank you.
Cheryl, under the
We do
elections.
have a missing page for Ask Me employee Maureen Fisher. On this budget, I did ask for an additional clerk for the office. I believe they are allowing a part-time addition for the elections. We want to use this new person as maybe like a floater. When it's really, really busy in the elections office or doing the census, they can work out there and help pick up some of the slack. But then at the other portion, we want to be able to teach them the other offices so that when we have a staff member out, which is going to happen, we're never stumbling in the dark, We want to also groom this person to do some IT work too, and just to help in a lot of categories. There's projects that we have been dying to get to that we just can't get to, and this will help.
I have questions, but I'll defer to any of my colleagues on this. Councilor Milo.
Just a quick question. When you talk about being a floater, does that mean they can float into the clerk's office as well? Or is it just within elections?
No, the
Float
clerk's
right
office
down
is
the hall. Okay. I just wanted to confirm, just to
All of
clarify
that
that.
side of the building is the
Yeah.
clerk's office per se. Yeah, it's divided
Well,
up
I
by
mean, in
budgets.
room one.
And well, if you went into any other city hall, they're all in one office.
Yeah.
We're the lucky ones to have separate offices for different function.
Yeah.
So, yes, I want this person to be groomed everywhere so they can fill in.
Yeah, that's great. Sounds good. Sounds good to me.
Cheryl, this actually goes back slightly to the new bilingual hire under your office.
Yep.
For purposes of elections, is that employee available for elections, or can she be made available for elections so that if there are any...
She's going to be out during election
Okay.
time. She's having a baby.
Good for her. Congratulations. That's
Yes.
So I guess since maybe for November 2016, this isn't going to work, but in terms of other elections, whether they be municipal or state, is the intent for this bilingual employee to be available during election time?
She works strictly in the vital records room, servicing, people that come in that don't speak English well, or we have a lot of problems with amending births, and I think when the hospitals aren't explaining everything, or there's just a lot of amending going on, and she's been an asset to try to help do the explanations. She has been asked to go down into room 5 in the elections and census room to help talk to somebody.
To like register to vote or polling place location or whatever?
But see, the one thing that I was looking at is that part-timer,
Yep,
I'm looking for bilingual,
great.
so that will help the girls there in dealing with, people that come over the counter that may not understand everything.
That's great. I'm very happy to hear that. And I'm also in kind of in the same line of thinking in the poll worker number. I know the reason why the 60,000 is here is that it's not just historic use of poll workers, but we're also talking about the early voting, which starts this year. And we have the early voting task force, and we're looking into this as well. But which one of the things that has been discussed at in committee when we were dealing with voting issues, and also with the task force, and starting with the early voting part of things, is having perhaps an hour's worth of training available for time to pay the volunteers to come in for a training prior to the election, to train them as to these are the protocols.
We train anyway.
Yep.
But we don't pay for training. Most 99% of the cities and towns do not pay for training. If you want to be a poll worker, you need to come and be trained.
I'm suggesting that if we, in terms of getting people, encouraging more people to get involved, and making sure that everyone is up to speed on current elections law, et cetera, in going over assignments as to going to XYZ polling location, is that something that you might be open to?
Well, yes. Obviously, if we're doing early voting, that setup is going to be different than an election day. Mm-hmm. So, yes, we're going to have to bring in the people that are going to work the extra hours and the different locations, and just show them what they need to do. We're not clear yet what has to be done even. I mean, we only still have draft information from the state, and we're still not even hearing from the people that program our machinery yet, if we're going to use that machinery or not, or just use it, or do it like we do for absentee voting. Because don't forget, we're going to have absentee voting and early voting simultaneously. So it's craziness, but we're going to have to figure out how we're doing that. See, for early voting, most people are thinking that the early voting will be done exactly like the way that we do absentee voting, where you'll be sending a folder to the poll, I'm not so sure that's going to work, because if we have a deluge of people that want to early vote, that's an awful lot at the polls for the poll workers to try to get through that
Right.
machine and record and everything else. So, not sure how that's going to work yet. I'm still talking with clerks and finding our way. But yes, training, absolutely, because we have to know what we're doing.
Is there anything that the council can do to help encourage residents to become poll workers? Because I want to avoid, because I know you want to avoid this too, but going up to the day of, or day before and saying like,
It always happens.
Is what can we do to help?
Well, the best thing is the call to help, and last year it was great. It was one of the worst times I ever had. I don't know what happened. I don't know where people went from March. I don't know why so many people ended up sick or in the hospital. And it was all last minute. So what do you do 24 hours before an election? You're on the phone all night trying to make sure you can find somebody, but luckily I had saviors out there.
And in terms of poll workers that are bilingual, preferably, obviously with Spanish.
I'll take as many of those you can find.
What can we do to help encourage bilingual folks to become poll workers?
That's not something that I can really do, but the Latino Coalition, they're very active, so I've always asked them, get me more people, get me more. They got me quite a few this last time around, and it was wonderful, but we also have to train them mainstream. We can't be doing all these little trainings everywhere.
Absolutely.
So they have to know that if we're doing a training, they all have to come. So if they know people that, want to sign up to work, please send them my way.
And I don't mean to monopolize this discussion, but one of the, maybe like we do ethics training each year, you're required to do the ethics as a city worker, to do the ethics training online and so forth. Is there a way, like on an annual basis, to if someone has been a poll worker, even though they've been a poll worker forever, if they do a training in March, that maybe that counts for the whole year of 2016 or whatever?
On a presidential, that could be dangerous, because there was one presidential where we were training up until days before, because the state changed the law several times, and we had to
Leading up
train,
to the-
untrain, train, untrain, and train again. But it all worked out. I don't know how, but it all worked out. So if you're trained in March, that's a different beast than the one in November.
Got it.
September is going to be different from the one in November. You know what I mean? September will be busy, but not like November. November, if you have lines wrapped around the building, that's a good thing, But where they have the early voting, there may not be lines wrapped around the building. It may free up a little bit, and that would be a good thing too.
Sort of spread the wealth.
I mean, it works in other states. It's got to work here too.
I said this in another committee meeting, but if they've been able to do this in Ohio and especially Florida, I know Salem is going to be up to the task.
We'll figure it out.
So, yeah. Any other councilors have questions? Councilor Gerard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just for clarification, on your outcomes and performance measures, your actual turnout for FY 2015 and the estimated for FY 2017 are missing.
Because this had to be done, you're talking about, well, how would I know the election's outcome?
Because, if you have an estimated for FY 2016 for the actual turnout for the elections, I was expecting to see, since there's an actual for FY 2014, I was expecting to see.
It's all a guesstimate. I mean, every year there's a different type of election, every year. And it's very hard to predict. I mean, I probably could have looked at the last 4 presidentials and got a ballpark for you. But there's just no way to predict, because we have a new scenario. I mean, this is all baby steps. We have a brand new scenario that we've never dealt with before, and that's the early voting.
But what about?
It wasn't hard. It wasn't easy to predict how things were going to turn out.
But
Are you talking about census or the actual turnout?
I'm talking about your outcomes and performance measures that we're on
Looking
page 22.
Yep.
That under actual turnout for FY 2014, you have 6,661. For estimated for FY 2016, you have 13,671.
Oh, you're
The
saying 15? Yeah, I don't know why that's not there. I can
Yeah,
get you
that's
that
what-
figure.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah, I can get you that figure. I thought you meant the 17.
No.
Okay. Yep, I can get you that figure.
Okay, thank you.
This is all being rushed before the election, so.
And so the AFSCME page missing.
Yeah, I noticed that in my book, that I didn't have the Ask Me page with Maureen on it.
Can we vote on that if we're missing?
Is it in your book, or is it
No.
just my book?
We can vote on it, we can continue and vote on it Thursday if you feel more comfortable, Counselor.
I can
So
make
what-
copy, I have,
I mean,
I
it's,
got it
I
out
mean,
of my paperwork.
yeah, it's just Maureen, but it's.
It's just, yeah,
But
it's just Maureen and then
still-
the part-timer.
Right. I mean, it's.
The total budget amount,
mentioned.
Counselor, is correct, it's just that that page reflecting the union salary is not there, so if you- when you vote the total salary amount, it's reflective of Maureen's salary and the part-time salary. It's just the budget detail page isn't there.
Page 20 is missing.
Right.
Her salary included.
I just found that today.
Page,
The page 20, I have page 20.
No, she's talking about under elections.
yeah. Okay.
The
I just, yeah.
basically between 24 and 25.
The page 20, I asked.
That was under the clerk's office itself, not the.
Page 25 is missing.
Yeah, between 24 and 25, there's a missing page. Oh. This didn't make it in. Any other questions? All right, any questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, I'll entertain motions.
Wait, I still have questions. I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Still have,
You've got questions?
yeah.
We'll hopefully get answers.
So, I mean, like, things like the furniture repair, like, where is that coming from again?
The state pays us for the extra added hours of election, which goes into a separate fund. It's not here. And that's what we use, when we need
Why?
extra.
Why
Because
isn't it here?
by law, they make us be open extra hours. And because of that, they send you a check every year.
So,
Polling hours.
But I think Councilor Gerard's question is, why isn't that money
reflected in the budget?
within the budget?
No,
I'm not sure.
it's never been.
Why?
So where does that,
I mean,
where does that money
into
go?
a-
Where does it, when it's received by your office, where does that money go?
It goes into a special account. I don't have that information with me tonight, but it's a special account. And I think too, in years past, like when the equipment was decertified, that's what we used to upgrade our equipment when it gets decertified. Over the years, the clerks, even before me, would use that to do certain little things. They don't want to spend down too much, but we would do that to help with little projects without damaging this budget. You know what I mean?
I think one of the goals that I'll speak for myself. I think one of the goals for this next year from the NF, for me, as the NF chair, would be to integrate that account into the overall budget. Because I think that that's something that really should be part of the discussion.
It's just something that keeps coming from the state. It's not anything that, it's,
But just like the city receives cherry sheet money,
yeah.
this might not be technically cherry sheet money that you're receiving from the state, but it certainly feels like it. And so I think that just in terms of proper bookkeeping and
Something that could be
so forth,
put
that would be
in.
great to incorporate, but into this new fiscal year.
Okay, I mean, because, to be honest, I'm having a hard time wanting to say approve or whatever, because I feel like that there are things that we've talked about that aren't reflected here. And, you know, like even with like the whole wedding thing, I assumed that being a justice of the peace, I thought that was part of your job. And
It's not required.
it's not,
I don't have to
but
be a justice
even
of the
so,
peace.
like when I sign my emails for my city council, I don't also say, oh, and by the way, I work at the Y, you know, because this is
I
focused
don't
on this.
sign my emails justice of the peace, it's just city clerk.
Eileen does. I mean, it says just, so that's why I assumed that was part of the job, and I just, again, I feel very fuzzy, like, wait, what is part of your job, what is part of your
I'll get you
budget?
information.
That would be
I have a
helpful.
whole folder on being a justice of the peace, so.
Okay,
I'll get you a lot of
but you're
information.
saying that's not part of your job,
I do not have to be a justice of the peace.
be a city clerk, you do not.
I do not have to be a justice of the peace, period.
Okay,
I chose to become a justice of the peace to add service for the public.
so, and
Considering that there was one years ago, and then there wasn't one anymore, it's a service that we do. I do it like a part-time job. A lot of times I'm doing it at night, and I'm doing it on weekends.
right, I remember us talking about you doing it at like midnight or something on
Oh,
Halloween.
I did a 2 a.m. wedding, yes.
Yeah, but I
Midnight
again,
wedding.
like that's where, like when I saw the stipends and everything, that's where I assumed that something like that was coming from, that's
It's
something.
like you working at a part-time job. It's not reflected in your pay for where your main job
Right.
is. It's your part-time gig. And yes, maybe I'm doing it here during work hours, but like I said, there are days I don't take a lunch. There are days I never take a break. Everybody's due a 15-minute break after so many hours. I never take it. I just keep working. So that's the way I look at it. If I'm performing something on my break,
Or if you stay an hour late, it's not an hourly paid job.
I will attest that coming in at 5:45 this evening, I found the city clerk at her computer doing work, and it was after 4 o'clock, knowing that she was coming here tonight, but yes. Any other questions to the city clerk on her budgets? I'll entertain a motion on the, we'll start with, let's see. Legislative City Council, I'll entertain a motion under that line item. Councilor Milo?
Mr. Chair, move to approve under Legislative City Council $141,700 under personnel expenses.
Is there a second?
Which line are we talking about?
This is under matter 2 on the cheat sheet. Legislative City Council, City Clerk, personnel expenses.
Second line.
Second. I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilor Gerard, moved by Councilor Milo, seconded by Councilor Gerard. Personnel expenses under Legislative City Council in the amount of $141,700. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Matter carries. Councilor Milo?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Move to approve under non-personnel expenses under Legislative City Council $31,950.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Milo, seconded by Councilor Dibble. Non-personnel expenses, Legislative City Council in the amount of $31,950. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Matter carries. Councilor Milo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Move to approve under Legislative City Council, total personnel and non-personnel, $173,650.
Second.
Been moved by Councilor Milo, seconded by Councilor Dibble. Total personnel and non-personnel expenses under Legislative City Council in the amount of $173,650. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Matter carries. Councilor Milo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Move to approve under City Clerk, personnel expenses, $279,580.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Milo, seconded by Councilor Dibble. Personnel expenses under the City Clerk's office, $279,580. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Matter carries. Councilor Milo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Move to approve under City Clerk, non-personnel expenses, $8,700.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Milo, seconded by Councilor Dibble. Non-personnel expenses under the City Clerk's office in the amount of $8,700. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Matter carries. Councilor Milo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Under City Clerk, total personnel and non-personnel expenses, move to approve $288,280.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Milo, seconded by Councilor Gerard. Total personnel and non-personnel expenses under the city clerk's office in the amount of $288,280. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Matter carries. Councilor Milo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Under elections and registrations, move to approve under personnel. Now I lost my line. $121,879,000.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Milo, seconded by Councilor Dibble. Personnel expenses under elections and registrations in the amount of $121,879. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Matter carries. Councilor Milo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Under non-personal expenses for elections and registrations, move to approve $93,425.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Milo, seconded by Councilor Fury. Non-personnel expenses under elections and registrations in the amount of $93,425. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Matter carries. Councilor Milo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Under total personnel and non-personnel expenses, under elections and registrations, move to approve $215,304.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Milo, seconded by Councilor Fury. Total personnel and non-personnel expenses under elections and registrations in the amount of $215,304. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Matter carries. Thank you very much, Cheryl.
Cheryl, thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cheryl.
Okay. We got two more. Police harbor master and then we have the bombs. Those are just general discussions on them.
Excuse for 1 minute?
We'll have 1 minute recess. Thank you.
I like recess.
We're back in session, and next up on the budget docket for this evening is the police department. Chief.
Section 13.
Section 13 in the books.
Thank you for being patient.
Yes. Thank you to the chief, and also a big thank you to our harbor master as well, who's rounding out the list.
He knows a lot more about CPA now.
Yeah. CPA, clerk's office, maybe you could get Mike, maybe you could do the part-time work in the elections office as a result after the inspection this time. So. All right, welcome, Chief Butler.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
We're happy to have you. So what, I'll let you take it away, you and and your very able assistant right next to you as well, but wherever you'd like to start.
Wherever I'd like to start?
Exactly.
Could you approve this budget? So any of the changes that we actually have really come from, obviously some contractual increases come from the request that we made in the middle of the year, this fiscal year, to put on an additional 6 individuals to actually go to the academy. And so the changes really wrap themselves for the most part around those particular issues. And one additional one where I've changed one civilian from his 24 or so to 26 hours, pretty much to the 35 hours, to sort of bring in the equation of dealing with NIBRs and some of the grants that we have, and that's what he's doing now in reconciling the grants, and the hope is to get him to actually look for them in order to find more funding to assist us. So in essence, that's really, for the most part, the majority of the changes that you see in the budget this year.
We'll open it up to any questions. Councilor Milo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you. Chief, can you talk a little bit about what you mentioned the other night at the opiate memorial?
What I mentioned.
About the staff, the additional staff?
Oh, yes. Oh, should have mentioned that, huh? Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor, for putting that in there.
It's something that we've been talking about, and obviously, clearly at this particular point, other communities are doing that. So, I'm calling it sort of a peer review, but what in essence it is having people that are trained, obviously, as counselors, as drug counselors, as well as pairing them with an individual who's in recovery. to actually go and do the follow-ups with people that we know that are using and/or overdosing, because clearly right now, up to the end of this May, we've had 65 overdoses. And so I think that we're not only just in line with repeating what we've done for the last 2 years, there may actually be a bump up relative to it. So it's a move sort of to get people in there to actually have this conversation. The problem is that as much as police officers would love to think that we can talk with people, and we can, this uniform with a drug situation creates a barrier. And this removes that barrier by having other people actually talk with them about what it is that they can do. The counselor has that obviously experience to do the counseling aspect, and the recovering individual can certainly know all the different tricks and reasons why they don't want to do something, and can call them on sort of those been there, done that, know what you're saying, and it's kind of helpful. And it's kind of hard for an officer to say know where you're coming from, because they don't really know where you're coming from. And I think that this will go a long way with trying to create, hopefully create a situation where we get more people in treatment, less people that we're dealing with in overdoses, and simultaneously to that, even though this is part of the budget thing, part of the actual opiate prevention coalition that we're part of with Peabody is that they're putting in, and I think it's going to start in July 1st or August 1st, they're going to be actually having similar type of recovery coaches in the emergency room. So if we're trying to hit them there, and then we're trying to hit them after the fact in the community through this particular resource. And I think that hopefully we can make some better inroads with getting people into proper treatment.
Councilor Milo, are you finished?
Actually, just one other question. I'm just trying to figure out where those positions appear.
It's under contracted services, under the expenses.
Oh, okay. So are they not, they're not actually city
They'll be like
employees?
consultants.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right, great. Got it. Thank you.
Chief, on the CIP budget
Yes.
for the police department, could you talk about, I mean, it's somewhat self-explanatory, but the roof replacement, because it's a large line item within our CIP budget for $600,000, and I note that it says Phase 1. Could you speak to that?
Yep, the roof needs to be replaced. Not trying to be totally funny, but believe it or not, as much as I, would love to be able to engage in conversation about whether it really needs to, I have to rely on people like the building inspector and architectural engineers to tell me, yeah, it's time to have it replaced. Over the years, probably the last, at least 10 years or so, we've experienced various points where we've had, a little bit of flooding and problems within the department. We've done a little bit of, fix up. I don't think it's the spray stuff that's on TV, but we've tried to, fix some of the areas where the flashing meets some of the hard structure objects on the roof. But it is a rubber roof. It has a lot of stones that are on it, and clearly in New England weather, we're talking about the salt from the ocean. We're talking about, tough winters that we've had, as well as the sun, and it's like we're 25 years in and it's taken its toll at this point, and that's what they're telling us, that it's about time that it needs to be replaced. It's really met that level. And the problem is because people are going to be stepping on this, because you do have to access it, step on this roof when you're trying to access any of the HVAC systems and those type of things. So it is a bit problematic when we're expecting workers to go up there and go on there, never mind what it means structurally to the building.
And it is a ballasted roof, which comes with challenges to take said ballast off said roof. So in addition to Michael Electrikowski going up and taking a look at it, we've also had 2 architects come take a look, give us an estimate on what we think the process is going to be. The city's purchasing agent has an RFP out right now for the architects. We can get that moving, get plans in place, and get the roof replaced sooner rather than later.
So Phase 1 gives the connotation that there's a Phase 2 at least?
Yeah, so the idea of Phase 2 would be to potentially put solar on the roof at the police department. So we had talked about a couple budget meetings back. I'm losing track of budget meetings. Just not a bad thing, it's good. But we have talked about newer roofs have the option to have solar go on them. It's a safer environment for a solar installation. It helps the solar installers guarantee that there are not going to be issues with any sort of penetration with solar installation. So that's why it says phase 1. Phase 2 would hopefully be solar. We should have said phase 1 architect, phase 2 roof, phase 3. A little ahead of ourselves on the phasing.
Because normally with the roof, I think of the whole roof, and so I was thinking, like, is this half the roof?
We're going to do
And
just
they're
the
not doing
corner,
half
see how it works. And the rest, no, we're going to do the whole roof. And so the idea behind it was that potentially it could be available for a solar installation.
Very helpful. Great. Councillor Fury.
If I may, on page section 812B on recent accomplishments, sincerely, I wish to truly commend and congratulate you for bringing back the 10-week Citizens Police Academy course, but also reinvesting in our youth in the 8th grade program situation. Officer Peter Baglioni, I believe, is retiring this year. Many of your department have a real human face, human impact with the kids and our young people in our community. And to see that, 2 of my own children have gone through the police department, certain situations that were involved in. The human face is so important. Mr. Officer Baglioni was absolutely outstanding. Yeah. So thank you very much for good people and good programs. Thank you.
Yep, thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. No, I think it's actually been really helpful. We've seen actually a little bit of a change from the first group that came in to the second group that came in. There was even a little bit of change in more investment in what it was they were doing. I mean, we literally, after the first one, asked them, how would you change things? What would you do? What would be different? Well, frankly, I got to be telling you that, they're coming right from school, so snacks was a big thing for them. But the other part was a little more interactive. So there's a portion of it that's, sort of educational in the fact that you're like sitting in a classroom and it's a little lecture instruction, and then we're actually physically doing some things with them that's some more hands-on type stuff, and it's been beneficial.
The Sheriff's Department has a nice program during the summertime. That's nice to be outreaching too that way. Thank you very much.
Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm really happy that you asked for the 2 extra people for doing the outreach that, as we sit on that task, as the opiate overdose prevention task force, that it's really, really awful. And it's great that you have people that are going to be going out with the officers. What is the ECCF treatment center?
That's the Essex County Sheriff's Department. So what they have is, they have a program at their location in Middleton right now that actually is dealing with people that are, having particular crime issues. It could be a larceny because they're trying to get their fix. But what in essence is the underlying issue is that they're drug addicted, and that's what's creating the circumstances for what they have. So why putting them in the general population when what you really need to do is address the issue of the addiction in the first place? So he has a facility that's set up as a 42-bed situation where they have to agree. It's a voluntary situation where they go into this program and they actually go through a drug treatment process right in this one particular area. They're not part of the mainstream of the jail, and they specifically do that, but they follow them even further in the sense that they ensure that they have housing, they ensure that they have a job, they ensure that they're having the follow-up treatment that they need once they're out of there. But it's all voluntary, and so it's really based on opinions from the police department that said this is a good candidate for that.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think that it's really important to have this multi-pronged approach to this, because this is very serious. If I can ask just one other question, mentioning something about utilizing and encouraging more alternative patrol methods, including enhanced bike patrols, T3s. What's a T3?
T3, it sounded like a Segway, but it's actually 3 wheels.
Oh,
so
yeah,
that's that,
those things.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
The enhanced Segway.
Exactly.
Or the amped up Segway, I guess. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Dibble. Get one
more.
pass.
Thank you. Okay.
Pass.
So then, just to clarify, then the difference for the variance for your FTEs. So it's the two social workers, and then what's the 0.3?
So the FTEs are for 2 new police officers.
Oh, that's
okay.
The counselors relating to the opioid matter
That's the
are under
0.3?
contracted services.
Right.
So they would
It's
be
under expenses.
It's separate. So
Okay.
this is including 2 new police officers. And the 0.3 is Fred Greener.
Is for what?
Fred Greener, the grants coordinator, getting bumped up to
full-time, 0.3 hours. Thank you. Yep.
Now, Councilor Dibble.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 4 different matters I'd like a little clarification on, but before I ask any of the 4, I just want to let you know that the entire city of Salem, we're appreciative and thankful for your efforts, you reorganizing the department a little bit and cost reduction measures. I've worked with you for a lot back in the late 80s or so on different projects with former Chief St. Pierre, and I saw you in action then, and I was extremely happy when you got the job this time around. And I'm happy to work with you as a counselor, and you have my support. The work that you've done on Halloween and the 4th of July and assisting the cruise ships and on and on and on, you're not missing a beat, so this is really good. And I think we take you for granted, take the department for granted when things are going smooth. But we're quick to jump on you when things don't go as smooth.
We're used to that.
You're doing a great job, and I think the entire city appreciates the entire force. With that, I'd like to ask a couple fast questions. So the first one is so that you're prepared for the very soon through Ward 5 and Ward 7, probably at the end of this fiscal year budget, but probably the next budget, the bike path will be extended in South Salem from downtown Riley Plaza to downtown Marblehead. And I'm wondering what steps you might take to make sure that some of the hidden areas along that path are protected by the police department. How would you access that?
I think, I mean, initially, once this goes into play, I think that we're going to have to be out there because it's going to be it's going to be a change for motorists. And so we definitely have to look real closely at making sure that we have a presence out there. But that's probably going to also go into play a little bit, depending upon the timing of when it's done. I mean, we did just get a grant to really talk about some of the issues around traffic enforcement. And we all know, I mean, if we go to all the community meetings, and traffic is always like the highest issue that's going on that we're dealing with. And so we know that, and so what we did was try to talk about an initiative that was a little more interactive and really get out there and sort of in people's face and make them understand that as drivers they're responsible. So the approach that we would take relative to the bike is make bike path that's going to be there is making sure that we're present to get drivers used to the idea that they're there in order to protect people. But other than that, it's really going to be looking at, you know, how it is in compliance with the federal regulations. I mean, I assume when we're doing this, Mayor, you can pipe in if you want, but I mean, assume when we're putting this and projecting what it is that we're doing, that all those federal regulations that are required for the offsets for driveways and streets and all those things are going to come into play.
Those are good points, but Mr. Chair, I was specifically thinking of the bike path going along Canal Street's highly visible, but when the bike path goes behind Gardner Mattress and behind Broadway, behind the junkyard,
okay. Yep.
It's pretty far
Okay,
removed.
Yep.
And I just want to make sure that when we hit the ground running and that is built, that the police department is also hitting the ground running. We're prepared for that. And I think it's at the tail end of this budget, if we get lucky. It's
Okay.
probably next fiscal year.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to be dissimilar from the type of approach that we take. I mean, you know, all of our offices and all the different beats have a particular approach that they take where they spend, you know, 15 minutes to a half an hour out of the cruiser in particular areas. South Harbor walkway is one of those particular ones that we have to walk in frequently. We deal with issues with homeless, we deal with, you know, drug issues and those type of things, so we actually frequent them. This would be a similar type of approach. I mean, I would certainly want to be able to make sure that the lighting's appropriate there for individuals, and I'm sure that's going to be part of the plan. But what we could do at that point is just utilize that particular time that we have on the beats, and actually 2 of them are going to transcend there, that they could actually spend some time.
I've been working closely with the mayor's office on making sure that some of the intersection changes, the crossings are ready, and I think the police department being ready for when the bike path opens is equally important. Second one.
And we do have bike officers, so I mean, you know, it would be a great time for, depending upon you know when it actually opens, to actually have them out there. You know, when new people are going to start making use of that.
This is a really good thing for the city. The linking downtown Marblehead to downtown Salem, crossing
Huge.
4 streets.
Huge, yeah.
But some areas are a little bit hidden.
Yeah.
I know Marblehead does a pretty good job in And I know we're going to do a better job when our path is built, but most of the paths that we have now are really highly visible along Salem State's central campus. It's pretty visible.
The best thing we can do is have people on it, so that,
Right.
you know,
Yep.
that's the safest way to keep it accessible.
They're going to use it. Second thing is, you folks have been in my prayers for a while with Officer St. Pierre and what happened with him. It's almost overwhelming when this stuff happens in your own town. You read about it in the news, but thank God he's okay. With regard to drugs and guns, and you guys are doing a great job in keeping potential gang members out of the city or moving them along. You're doing a good job on that. But the task force itself, what exactly is the goal of the task force? And for those people viewing at home, what are some of the results that you've already achieved?
It's twofold. Clearly, we can't look at policing as a single approach in anything that we do. So we're looking at it both from the perspective of, the real strict enforcement type thing, and sort of almost the broken windows theory, which is that you address, this is what that theory is about. If you address the little things, whether it be the parking things, whether it be people hanging around on a corner, when you address the little things, then it doesn't allow the big things to happen, because it's believed that if you let little things go that and everybody knows are illegal, you're not supposed to be, necessarily loitering, you're not supposed to be smoking, marijuana on the corner, you're not supposed to be parking in this spot. When you let those things go, it gives the impression to folks that it's okay. And so what we do is attack those particular issues and make sure that we're addressing them. But simultaneously, it's dealing with the community and the neighborhoods, both from the perspective of ultimately we'll be, up in the Rollins Street, Ober Street area where they're having particular problems. Right now, we're focusing right now on the point in the Lafayette Street area. And so, but it's dealing with those particular neighborhoods and helping them see that we're trying to do something and we need their assistance too. But people don't necessarily want to jump on board until they see us doing something. So we have to actively engage with our businesses, engage with our community folks, stop and talk with them, deal with the kids that are there, but also deal with the enforcement. And part of that could be that warrant apprehension becomes a part of it. So it's not a one play on this. It's literally two different things. The community policing aspect for problem solving, community engagement, that particular issue, and then the actual real enforcement of the problems. And so we're doing it sort of twofold.
It's really good. I heard you speaking like this 25 years ago. It's good to have you in charge. I think I had two more. Mr. Chair, if I may, at the floor. The assessment, that's going on now, or soon to go on, the cost for future changes. I know we're bringing on 6 new officers, which is really good. I happen to know one of them. Hopefully I know one of them, maybe more. But we're losing 2 people, and maybe even more than that. Can you just touch upon the assessment? What kind of changes will that affect your budget? Just give an overview of what this assessment will cover.
Well, the assessment is looking at that overall. I mean, it's looking at the issues of, how our police department operates within our community. What are the effective and efficient ways of doing business in a cost-effective way if we can manage that. What does that look like? And are we doing the right things for the community? So it's not just all about the finances of it, but it's really also about the feedback in terms of how we do things and what we do. They're going to be starting to look at the data portion of it right now. So the data-driven portion will hopefully, let them look at a difference from what they looked at in the first phase of it, which was really about interaction with people. They talked to the business community, they talked to neighborhood organizations, they talked to the officers, they talked to our command staff. What's going on? What do you see? What is happening? What's the perception of the police department vis-a-vis the community? you folks and even the neighborhood organizations. And so then those changes that they're going to suggest, they're in essence recommendations. And so ultimately, I would think that we're going to be, articulating what those recommendations look like, what they're proposing to us. And then the steering committee that we have organized is going to look at those proposals, those recommendations, and determine, are they appropriate things for us to be able to do for the police department, for the city? Are these things that we want to actually undertake? And then if so, which ones they are, how do we go about it? And what's the plan? I mean, because I don't expect there's not a magic wand. It's not going to be something that, here's the recommendations and we're doing this overnight. I could see this is probably a plan that's going to be, 3, 5 years, 10 years even in the making, depending upon what their recommendations are. And that would be ultimately the approach.
So you don't know how that will, I'm sorry, through the chair, you don't know how that will affect the budget quite yet because you don't know what changes are yet.
Exactly. We need to know what those recommendations are and then which ones really, just because they make a recommendation doesn't mean that it's something that we're going to accept because it may not be good for our community. It may not be good for our department. And so that's what the steering committee is about, is to really look at those things and make a determination as to what makes the most sense. And then how do we do it? And then if there's a cost implication to it, and even though it might sound good to do right now, it may not be cost effective to do right now. So what's the plan? What's the build out plan to be able to get that done?
I thought originally, Mr. Chair, we would have some trouble with the police department budget because it is a very complicated budget, but our chief is on the money here, I think. The last issue I had was on, you came before us a short while ago for an appropriation for, I think it was overtime, 2 different appropriations, but one big one on overtime. And a heck of a whole lot of that overtime, I think, was going towards training and computer skills. And I'm just curious, how is the new computer system working within the police department? I'll stop there.
Depends upon who you ask.
I'm asking our chief.
Okay. You're asking me. So, I think it's going well. I think there's still some struggles with it. We've undertaken, we did the initial training and then we did some follow-up training with our own folks, training our guys, and basically sort of giving them little cues and things, addressing the issues that they had with it. We're still working through some problems. The crash report program that's in there is not working always 100% accurately, in the sense that they'll put their stuff in and then by the time they move to the next section, it depletes it and they're starting all over again. Bit problematic, so that's a ticket item that we're dealing with NextGen, trying to get that done. So that becomes a frustration level and a time commitment issue for offices. But overall, I think that, with all the whining and complaining or whatever, I think that it's moving in a good direction. And I think people are getting accustomed to it and used to it. And it does have some really good features in terms of being able to bring things out where I can, literally go into the computer system and do a little circle around an area to map what's going on in that. And it will give me a map that tells me, okay, here's all the things, here's all the overdoses. This is what it looks like across the city. So there's some very good features of it. There's still some struggles that we're trying to get through. I would have loved to have had the connection with CGIS already. That was actually expected in December. We're now here in June, and it's not quite there yet. So we have, it's a work in progress.
You have my support, the whole police department. You're in my prayers all the time. But the job that you're doing, and you're brand new at this, I can't wait to see the changes that you'll make over your first year. So thank you.
Thank you.
I've got a couple of questions, Chief. But let me first say that it's been just over a year now that you've been in place as the chief, and I have to say that your listening tour that you conducted as the chief and that you've had your officers do in going to the various neighborhood groups and specifically the Ward 4 Gallows Hill group, that's phenomenal. That's great. And I have to say that as experienced and as wonderful as Chief Tucker was, now Rep Tucker, it was a seamless transition. And that's a testament to you. And I want to thank the mayor for this great appointment in Chief Butler to that. It's been seamless. The two questions that I had, one is actually on page 141, and that's on dues and subscriptions. So just a minor question here, but one of the dues and subscriptions that's included is Westlaw. And we spoke with the city solicitor last week with her budget, and she has LexisNexis. I don't think that she has Westlaw. I'm just wondering out loud, is there a way to share that resource between departments in terms of computer access for them, or do, in other words, do we need both LexisNexis and Westlaw? Is there a way to and it's probably not a lot of money, but a way to save or to collaborate between those two offices?
Nope, and I'm with you. I definitely see that. I think with the changes that the city's making with the fiber optic network, I think that would lend itself to be able to do that up to this particular point. It's not been something that's easily shared in that regard, but with this particular network system, I think it may have that capability, and it's certainly something we can explore with Matt as he's getting that process moving forward.
Because I know that they're with licensing agreements that you have like X number of computers that are assigned, and so I get that. But if, for example, if one workstation is able to do it, then whether it's through the solicitor's office or whether it's through the police department, either one, I mean, I know that it needs to be there, but it's just a question of sharing that resource.
You also still get hard copy manuals too, of the rules of civil procedure, criminal procedure, the search warrant, the desk manuals, so that's also included in that Westlaw. It's actual book format. And
So you are going from the hardbound version to the electronic version?
Yeah, there's different forms. Some we still keep in print, and they send the updates and the addendums to add in the back. And then if we're researching case law or something for the CID, so it does include both.
I have to admit that in my day job, I love having the printed copy on occasion, but to the extent that you're able to share, that's phenomenal. So
We know that we've got members of staff doing update memos on new, case law that we need to be mindful of, and so we definitely want to make sure we have the resource, and we can certainly sort through if there's an easier way to, collaborate with the law department, but.
Yeah, which is, like I said, which I think, like I said, I think when you're starting to finally get the fiber network situation going, that's trying to create that common link between departments, even though they may be in different facilities or different buildings. I think that's certainly a conduit to be able to maybe make that jump.
then the other question, actually semi-related in a strange sort of way, there's a potential for a new law that will go into effect in November with a ballot initiative for marijuana legalization, recreational use for marijuana legalization. And I'm just wondering, in the law enforcement community at large within Massachusetts, and then specifically to Salem and the Salem PD, has there been, I'm going to presume that since with a large a large number of folks going to the polls this fall, it probably will pass in Massachusetts. Who knows? Anything can happen, but it probably will pass. And so, without discussing the pros and cons to that policy, I guess the question is, how is the Salem Police Department and then law enforcement in general in the Commonwealth dealing with potential training for this new legalization issue, and looking to other states and communities like in Colorado, for example?
Yeah, that's going to end up being key, is obviously looking at the states that are already dealing with it and taking care of some of those things. We've started already with one DRE that we have trained, drug recognition expert, and there's a particular process. It's sort of different than what you have to go through, as you know, dealing with somebody who's intoxicated and trying to establish that that's the case. But a DRE can look at it and let you know if somebody's actually on drugs based on a particular process that they undertake. So we'll be trying to get a few more of those people, because statewide there are very, very few right now, and so the state in general is not prepared to be able to even handle this particular issue. I just answered the Gazette yesterday about this, and it was, clearly from a law enforcement perspective, a bit problematic while we're talking about an opiate epidemic when people talk about this as a gateway drug. So I'm certainly, not jumping up and down about it. And, we're already dealing with people that are driving around impaired, whether it's particular medications that they're using, or it's alcohol, and now we're just going to add one more thing to that particular equation. So there's going to be a lot of work that law enforcement's definitely going to have to step up and do. DREs, I think, are going to be part of it, but it's going to be a different change in terms of the learning curve about what it is and how we address some of the issues that go along with that. So
Is it fair to say, though, Chief, that in terms of allaying some citizens' fears about recreational marijuana use, presuming that it passes in the fall, is it safe to say, though, that your officers are still going to be stopping individuals who are operating under the influence of whatever the drug might be, whether it's alcohol or marijuana? If they're operating a motor vehicle and are swerving, you're going to be stopping.
That's the thing.
People are going to be
exactly. The fact of the matter is that we're not going to know whether they're drinking, whether they're on a prescription medication that's somehow affected the way that they're operating, or whether it's marijuana or medical marijuana or whatever the case may be. The fact is, it's the behavior of their driving that we're going to stop them from driving in a way that's dangerous to the public.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from Councilor Gerard?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In regards to the 4th of July, did you guys pay for the signs, the fireworks equals fines
Yes,
signs?
we were just talking about that, actually.
Oh.
Yeah, we actually got to dig those back out, because we actually have some still on hand. It's behind a locked barricade that I can't even get at, so it's like, this is like secret special
Signs
stuff.
are that dangerous?
Yeah.
But in your narrative, you noted that it didn't have the desired result, or the fireworks equals fines, the campaign, it had some impact up to July 4th, but didn't have the desired result on the 4th or immediately thereafter. So what's the plan this time? And also, the other part of that is that for the community events under your object code 5775, that the $63,000 that's allocated for that's for 4th of July and for Halloween. So the other piece of that is how much of that 63 is for Halloween, how much of that is for 4th of July?
On the community events?
Yes.
Smaller percentage on July 4th. At this particular point, we have, a majority of people that we have that are, our Salem offices that are going to be working. There's a small percentage that will be Sheriff Department. So it's minuscule in terms of what we're looking at, I think, on that. I mean, not minuscule in the sense that when you're looking at a percentage, probably, probably no more than 15% of that would be equated to July 4th. And yeah, the desired effect didn't exactly happen, because you certainly were hoping that, more people would jump on board and realize that, we're going to come down a little bit hard on that. I did have several dedicated firework patrols out there, that was their main objective, was to drive around and respond to those calls and or look for them. What ran amok was what happened sort of in the Cherry Street area, which was just insanity over there. That was like a little crazy. And I probably will have some people positioned over there this year, and I don't mind telling them. So they may want to take their show someplace else, because that was just disastrous.
Put some over in my neighborhood. They were going off like every hour.
I listened to it like the other day. I was like, it was June 4th. I go, all right, so we're a month away and we're already starting with the fireworks. It's,
Yeah. Okay. Just
You got the floor?
one more question. So I'm pleased to see that the detectives arrested the 5 heroin dealers and confiscated between 250 and 300 grams. How big of an impact do you feel like that had on the problem as a whole?
I think the problem is there's so much of it out there.
Right.
That we still have to keep doing this. I mean, even if it's not making the hugest impact, we took 3 of them off the street, and within a half an hour, that business was turned over to a relative of those individuals. And then within an hour, we arrested that person, and we don't know it for a fact, but I'm pretty sure that within an hour, somebody else picked up the business. The problem is there is so much of it at this point, but we still have to continue attacking it, in a vigilant way that we're doing it, because the more we can try to get off the streets, the better it is. And frankly, the fentanyl is just a huge issue. Peabody grabbed a huge amount in one of the buildings over there not that long ago. The more that we can do, the better. And frankly, we're getting word that there's a big influx of that's going to be coming down the pike of what looks like prescription medication, oxycodone, that isn't. It's pretty much fentanyl. So there's just more problems that we continue to try to attack. So. I had some conversation with a couple of the legislatures about really looking at trying to address legislation in a way about what the effect of the substance is as opposed to the substance, because frankly I feel like all we're doing is chasing our tail. It's fentanyl this time, it's this time, that's all we're doing. So it's really got to be on the effect of the drug, I think, and that's where we've got to change some of the laws, but I don't think it's going to change what we're doing until that demand isn't even there, and which is why we're doing the peer review and the recovering coaches and the ED. We've really got to try to turn that around. So
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move for approval for the police personnel expense budget in the amount of $9,656,861.
It's been moved by Councillor Gerard, seconded by Councillor Dibble. Personnel expenses of the police department in the amount of $9,656,861. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The matter carries. Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move for approval for the police non-personnel expense budget in the amount of $666,720.
Second.
It's been moved by Councillor Gerard, seconded by Councillor Dibble, of non-personnel expenses for the police department in the amount of $666,720. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The matter carries. Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move for approval for the police total personnel and non-personnel budget in the amount of $10,323,581.
Second.
It's been moved by Councillor Gerard, seconded by Councillor Fury. Total personnel and non-personnel expenses under the police department in the amount of $10,323,581. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The matter carries. Chief, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Last but not least, our harbor master.
Please share our thanks to the whole force.
Absolutely.
You guys do a great job.
Thank you. Is that under?
Welcome.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm well. How about yourself?
What, if any, opening statement would you like to make?
For the record, I'm Bill McHugh. I serve as your harbor master. I have no significant budget or staffing changes forecasted for this fiscal year 17 budget. We do everything on I do everything on a man-hours basis and try to project what's reasonable for what we anticipate is we're going to encounter. That's commercial projects, that's patrol, search and rescue, things like that, as well as non-personnel items. In marine environment, things break, so we try to forecast accurately, not go overboard, but be ready for, a very proactive maintenance program on the vessels.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Related to mutual aid requests. I asked this question last year.
Yep.
Marblehead.
Yep.
Every community helps each other with this, and I remember that answer from last year. But am I correct in stating that Marblehead's harbor master is a part-time position for that community?
No, absolutely not. It is a full-time position. I think we have to look at our AOR, area of responsibility, and we wrap around to Tinker's Island. So, a lot of times that may be part of it. I think probably the bigger load that may be what you're driving at is the fact that Marblehead has a west shore which is situated in Salem Harbor. So by that nature, they stop their patrols at 11 o'clock, we're 24 hours, so that may be the perceived inequity there.
That is the accurate perception of my thought.
I mean, there are times, I mean, where we've had maybe some responsibilities or an attempted responsibility conveyed to us where I've said, no, that's not a service that we are going to provide, because it was in anticipation, it was not an emergency. It was anticipating someone that was going to be on a vessel that we might have to render medical aid to. And, that's kind of unrealistic to think that we're going to be on call for that particular instance. It's a responsibility that we shouldn't have to take.
Mayor, is there any, have there been any conversations with Marblehead in terms of any contributions to our harbor master for service that we do provide to that community after 11 o'clock in the evening and so forth?
Yeah, no, we haven't had direct conversations. I think we're certainly open to that dialogue. We've had other areas of discussion with other towns around shared services and collaboration. Maybe this is an opportunity. So they have not expressed kind of an openness to the conversation to date. I guess I would say, but certainly something.
I would like to say that, it's not a question of whether they're a good group of people and they will come out and, render aid. The schedule's just different than ours. So
my question isn't to the professionalism and abilities of the personnel in Marblehead. It's the commitment of the town to ensure that they are providing 24-hour service for a 24-hour issue.
They're not the only community that doesn't do that in our area. So they don't stand alone. I think that Salem definitely has the correct approach, and I think it's warranted. Unfortunately, sometimes I think it would probably, from your perspective and mine at times, look like, okay, we're answering a lot.
And to that end, I mean, aside from Salem, and you may not know the answer to this, but aside from Salem, are there any other communities that provide aid to Marblehead after 11 o'clock at night?
I will say, probably not communities. I can't say that, I don't want to say that there's absolutely none, but we're right next door. We're the closest.
And as you said, it empties into Salem Harbor. And so we're effectively their backup.
So, they do have a duty phone per se. We have a bit of a different system than most. Once we close the office, that same number goes right to the boat. So it's one number, and I believe strongly in that. So people memorize that number, and they don't have to, have a boat phone, or they don't have to rely on just the VHF. We get calls from different mediums. It might even be Salem Control at the police station. They'll dispatch us. It's however people get to us, and that's the important thing. They do have a boat phone, a duty phone that, I think it goes through Marblehead Police, and they contact whoever has the duty that's not on the boat. Our big issue is, and it would be probably no different than any other community, they are located within Salem Harbor. Marblehead's west shore and their mooring field is located within Salem Harbor. So I can't tell you how many times in the spring I get calls from people asking for a mooring, and I try to find out where the public access point's going to be, how they're going to access their vessel, and it's a Marblehead customer. I said, no, you need to call the Marblehead Harbor Master. That is, I do not issue permits for that side of the harbor. So people do get confused, and I think that's kind of that goes ahead and translates over to the emergency call out. I mean, it is Salem Harbor proper.
Mayor, if you could, on behalf of the Ward 4 councilor who is the furthest away from the ocean of all of the wards and the landlubber of the group of us, if you could share this with the town manager in Marblehead, I think that there should be, I'm not looking for a large amount, but I think that just the recognition that Salem is really the backstop here. Thank you. Councilor
Chairman used the word seamless in the transition from Chief Tucker to Chief Butler. But it's seamless when you think of the Salem Harbor. It's the 21st century new frontier of Salem. What you have going on in the Salem Harbor, you've got a ferry, beautiful 21st century ferry system. You've got cruise ships coming in. You've got the power plant being going with gas, dismantling the old power plant, taking it out by ocean, joining out to the streets of Salem. Then you got the normal, everyday use of the harbor, all going on at the same time. It's all being covered by the police station sometimes from the what's going on with National Defense, 911. It's amazing. We're very lucky to have you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're trying to add water taxi to his list of
Water taxi.
responsibilities as well.
I think you were successful.
All right. So we are talking about a new pilot water taxi service this season that will, why don't you tell folks about what we have in mind?
Yeah, sure.
Trying to put together stuff.
We're going to start out, I don't want to say crawling, but, I like to say crawl before you walk before you run. We'll be walking in this. We're going to do a limited schedule. We're going to target for when the kids get out of school, so it'll be around July 1st, and it'll run till Labor Day. We're going to have one vessel. It's going to be approximately 27 feet in length, but a 20-passenger vessel, a Coast Guard inspected vessel. And it will operate between Congress Street, Blaney Street, Winter Island, and the Willows when the weather permits. And we're going to try to target, we're treating Blaney Street as the terminal, which it should be, so we're going to try to target to bring all these areas together to get people to the ferry, or from the ferry out to downtown Salem by water, which I think will be popular. We put a RFP out. Boston Harbor Cruises was able to come up with a vessel. Actually, it was kind of tough getting. We've been working on this for a while. The mayor and myself have been working on this for a while, and it was kind of tough to get people interested. We tried to get a whole bunch of marine contractors interested, but it looks like Boston Harbor Cruises is going to be able to commit one vessel, and I think it should work out well.
What would the price point be?
That's what we're working out now. We're going to try to keep it very, very affordable.
Yeah.
Maybe do something like a very, very reduced fare for a one trip, and then have something a little bit more, not high, but a little bit more pricey for a whole day pass. And it's not to compete with any other modes of transportation, just some people want to take the water, some people just want kind of a direct line on the water, point A to point B. We strand sometimes people, either Winter Island or the Willows, that are walking, they want another way to get directly to the ferry, and this will be a good way.
Especially if you combo it with, the Salem trolley is free for Salem residents, so at least for residents, it could be a great way to take the boat down to the Willows, take the ferry back, or take the boat down the Willows, take the trolley back rather, and just partner it up. And also, anytime we keep a car off the road, I mean, that for us is, important given the congestion and the traffic and all the work we're doing. We only have so much of a construction season, so all the roads need to get repaved at that time. All the, the work that's going on. It's a great opportunity on so many fronts.
Have you? I'm sure you've thought of this, but like bike storage on the boat.
I don't think we're incorporating bike storage into the boat.
Yeah, that's not something that is prohibited, but it will be something that we'll have to see with the ridership. Obviously, if you have a full boat, the bike's not coming. Most of your boats of this size, and we really did need to find a niche-sized vessel because of the constraints down in South River, and again, this boat will be home-based out of the new commercial marina, so we didn't want anything too large that would be in conflict with the Brewers Hawthorne Cove recreational mariners or the movement of the ferry and the rest of the people that are going to be in that marina. So I really kind of was looking for an appropriate size vessel, and I think we got it. Not saying that the bikes will be prohibited, but again, full boats.
Priorities people.
I would think too, with the small distance, if you have a full boat, I think somebody would probably hop on their bike and ride it anyway.
The idea of getting there with bike is another way to get on your bike, take the bike, take the boat ride.
Also at Blaney Street, we have the Salem Spins bikes there, so people don't really have to bring their own bike.
Having, I guess, at each one of the embarkation and debarkation locations, if we could have at least bike racks available.
We're going to have to think that through.
But great idea. That sounds great. Councilor Girard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of your recent accomplishments was construction of the new fishing pier at Salem Willows.
Yep.
When is that happening?
So the land agreement was signed, right?
Yeah, we've signed all the agreements. We're in the queue with the state. This is a process where the state will help design it, and then make a contribution. There is a contribution from the city that's required to build it out. There's some really good examples. I forget, was it?
Oaks Bluff.
Oaks Bluff was the one that I think ours is sort of going to be designed after, and have a little bit more space at the end to accommodate folks who are out there fishing. It's probably, I don't think we're going to see it in this fiscal year. Maybe. We're in the queue, I know that. And it's part of the state-funded program that funded that original pier. So we're looking forward to seeing some of the enhancements there. We also are partnering more with the Division of Marine Fisheries and Recreation on teaching kids to fish. So the Park and Rec Department will have our first fishing derby, or certainly one that we haven't had in a while. I think both for youth and adults. The youth one, you can come down whether you have a fishing pole or not. They'll teach you how to cast, talk to you about what kind of bait, what you're catching. There's like an educational component to it as well. And we're excited about kind of getting people's appetite ready for the new pier, which will accommodate even more fishing. There's a lot of fishing, a lot of squid fishing. I mean, it's a whole array of things that go on down there. But this will better accommodate that kind of work. But we definitely want to get more active use in the meantime. So we'll stay tuned. I don't have an exact timeline. I just know that we're in the queue, which is good.
That's good.
And we will have to make a contribution. We don't have the exact amount, but the bulk of it's paid for by the state. It's like a 75-25 match, which is pretty good.
We might be able to do some in-kind too with that, correct?
Yeah. It's not even all cash. Some of it's in kind. We have to maintain public access, but all things that are very, very easy to accommodate.
What are the two things in your capital requests in your CIP? The marine propulsion replacement and the multi-vessel trailer?
Engine changes. So we're constantly trying to, we put a lot of hours on the boats during the season, normally under adverse conditions, or quite often under adverse conditions. We have in the GSA program with Bombardier, which we're now registered dealers, which means we can buy directly. So we do partner with, local mechanics for the OEM guarantee, but they're giving us a 3-year warranty on these engines now in commercial government service. So we're trying to keep up with that. We're taking the engines that come off warranty and rotating them down to the second line vessels, the ones that don't probably get as many hours on them. Just trying to be smart about it, because when the engines do fail, if you have to pay for it out of pocket, they're extremely pricey. So we're trying to stay proactive with the maintenance, change them out when we think it's appropriate, and follow the hours and just kind of rotate them down through the cycle and then out the door. And then the second one is the multi-trailer. That is something, it would be one piece of rolling stock that can service every vessel. So right now we have aged trailers that, saltwater trailers get rough, and we do depend on those just even to get them up the ramp at Winter Island so we can work on the hulls and things like that. This one would even handle the big boat, the Cat, so that we could get it out, without having to go to the yards and get in line there. Although I will say the local yards have been excellent about getting us out. But sometimes when we need to get that boat out, they're in their busy season, and we just need to so it just makes good sense. One piece of rolling stock, take care of all the boats.
Okay. And so that's one trailer?
Yes. Okay. It's a multi-purpose trailer.
Okay. Thank you.
And that one's been on the queue for a while, but it's one that, we always find something else that pops out ahead, so it's kind of been pushed back a few fiscal years, or a couple anyway. Yeah.
So I've been remiss in not mentioning the outstanding job that Bill does, not only patrolling the water, all the work of the management of the boats. Although we have an operator for the ferry, he's a key contact in terms of getting them ready, getting them access, coordinating all the work with the cruise ships. But the work in the off-season, when you think, well, we don't have that much going on, is there's actually added duties because we're managing boat storage at Winter Island. And that was something that we were, all I think interested in, but hesitant of as well. And it couldn't have worked better in terms of being well managed, providing a revenue stream that goes back to help support the cost of harbor master operations and equipment and capital needs. And also providing a service that boat owners need and boat shops need. And in a time when Winter Island isn't as busy, we still allow people to certainly access the perimeter, but it's been managed really well. The boats are out of there when they're supposed to be out of there. I'm sure there's work chasing people out of there, or are they not out of there?
No, they're all out.
Right.
Some of them like to see me missing at sea, but they're all out.
But that was added duties and responsibilities. that are certainly providing revenues to the department, but there's work involved in it. And, you know, thank you for taking that task on.
Thank you.
And improving it.
Thank you. Councilor Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. Just like the police department, if everything's going smooth, everything's nice and quiet, and they're taken for granted. I think your office is taken for granted somewhat as well, because if we don't hear from you, then everything's going good. But when we hear from you, there's boats sinking, whatever's going on, boats getting broken into, but you're doing a great job because we're not hearing anything.
Thanks.
It's a weird way of saying that, but some of the comments here tonight and what I've read in here is like, we want to hear from you, because things like the water taxi, I'll mirror that to like the Fort Lauderdale water taxi, and that's a much bigger endeavor, but that is fascinating. I've been on it 40 times now, and I can't get enough of it. I will be on the Salem water taxi frequently.
Good.
The Oaks Bluff Pier that you talked about, I rent a house directly across the street. I sit on my front porch, and I've seen what they had before and what they have now, and it's night and day. I'll be down there in July and August this year, in between city council meetings. And I'll take a second look at that pier, thinking that, oh, let's bring this here to Salem. And what we have now is pretty good compared to what we had years ago. And if we have something like this, we're just going in the right direction. And my oldest son was captain of the Salem Ferry, so a lot of what you're talking about, I have lived in my house and seen directly. With that, years ago I owned a tuna boat before I was married, and the mooring fields were getting kind of tight. But when I look at your numbers across the board, everywhere on here, it seems like the population of Salem seems to be going up slightly, but yet the population of the boating industry here is kind of like leveled off. Is that a fair statement?
It is. I'll tell you, a lot of it's controlled. Different mooring fields are very popular. Other ones are for first-time boaters, and some people will jump into boating, and we see a lot of turnover in those areas, so it kind of equals out. The other thing is we have commercial rental moorings. Brewers Hawthorne Cove takes a lot of the mooring fields between Derby Light and the jetty, which is Area E. So you'll see, for whatever, if we have a real robust rental season, sometimes you'll see the people that have jumped into boating for the first time slack off. So it kind of stays static. And also, we only have so much room. So, you know,
Are the areas, the field still SALEM?
And then add Winter Island, yes.
Okay. Basically, how much more room do we have to grow? How many more boats can we harvest?
It depends how big they are.
Yeah,
depends how big they are.
On average.
About where we are. We're just about at capacity.
So is it, okay.
I mean, as far as moorings,
Yes.
that doesn't mean that you can't add slips in areas, and it's a lot of it would be what's permitted by the federal government, but, or Army Corps, I should say.
Have we been to the point that we're on a waiting list for moorings?
We can accommodate everybody right now if they didn't have a preference from where they're going. So the only people that are on a waiting list are the yacht clubs. And I think Salem Willows is 100% taken care of, and I believe Parma Cove is right now. I think the only yacht club right now that has people on the waiting list is Jubilee.
One last question I have is, one thing that looks like it's changed, I wonder if you just explain what it is and why the increase, but under special project cargo, it says, escort and inspection, arrival and departure, it seems like the numbers are going way up.
Power plant. It's all relative to the construction and demolition of the power plant. Everything, a lot of stuff's going up by water, so,
okay, so
and coming in by water.
So that will stop.
Well, hopefully it'll stay the same with cruise ships, so we'll hope. Won't be special project cargo, it'll be passenger vessels.
Yeah.
That's what we're hoping.
And nice job, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Councilor Gerard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move for approval of the Harbor Master personnel budget in the amount of $227,865.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Gerard, seconded by Councilor Dibble, of personnel expenses for the Harbor Master Department in the amount of $227,865. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Matter carries. Councilor Gerard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move for approval for the Harbor Master non-personnel expense budget in the amount of $49,000. Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Gerard, seconded by Councilor Milo, of non-personnel expenses under the Harbor Master Department, the amount of $49,000. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Matter carries. Councilor Gerard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move for approval for the Harbor Master personnel and non-personnel expense budget in the amount of $276,865. Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Gerard, seconded by Councilor Milo. Total personnel and non-personnel expenses for the Harbor Master Department in the amount of $276,865. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Matter carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda for this evening is order number, we have three more items. We have order number 329. That is the order regarding revolving accounts, and without objection, we'll waive the reading. Seeing none. So I just want to note to council members, to committee members, that this has not been marked for a further hearing on Thursday, so we do need to vote on this tonight so that we can move forward with it on the Thursday meeting. So if there are any questions concerning the revolving accounts, and I would note as well that it includes on third from the back page, there are 5 school-related revolving accounts. I don't anticipate there being questions, but if there are, we have our mayor, who's the chair of the school committee, as well as our finance director for the city. And just for the folks at home, Sarah, if you wouldn't mind just outlining just very quickly, what is a revolving account and why do we have them?
Sure. A revolving account is an outside source of revenue coming to the city, whether it be from a donation that's specifically earmarked for continual use or a user-based fee, which is what it's typically over. That money goes into an account outside of the general fund and has a specific use associated to the creation of said account. So if it's for school bus transportation, it's directly related to the fees of school busing and thus goes back into school busing. Same thing with night school, the automotive program, traffic island account, trees, a whole multitude of.
Am I correct in stating that several of these, not all, but several of these are required?
Yes.
Any questions among committee members? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Councilor Gerard?
I just have one question.
Sure.
Have these budget request amounts, have these changed?
No. Okay.
Most of them are estimates.
Yeah.
Okay.
Depending on how many revenues come in.
Stays about the same. If there's anything major, usually we'll include a memo to the council explaining any sort of major fluctuation.
Councilor Dibble?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just in general, so I have a little better understanding of what all these are and how they work. Can you give us a fast explanation of the process of these and who supervises the funds, or do they follow all the local and state ordinances?
Yep, absolutely. So each fund should have what the department is responsible for it underneath it. So community development is responsible for Blaney Street. The fire department is responsible for all those relating to fire. The school department is responsible for special education, school bus transportation, the automotive services program, and any fees that come in to each individual revolving account is based on that individual department and overseen by that individual department. And they all follow Mass General Law, all of our local ordinances and regulations.
The question is, any bidding would go through the purchasing department?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Example, like the mayor's line here, the third one down on page 2, $125,000 from RFP for services. What is that? How do you get $125,000?
Which line are you referring to, Counselor?
Third line on page 2.
Special events for the mayor's budget.
I'm sorry. Yep, special events.
Yep, so that's estimated money that comes in from a combination of footprint, outside donations.
Sometimes.
Donation, okay.
4th of July, I mean, we run a couple of different things through there.
I don't mean to pick on the mayor on this one, but you're the only one here left at this late hour at night. So there's a lot of these revolving
You've got
accounts.
school department, anybody that has a revenue source that doesn't want it to go into the general fund, you need to have a revolving account. So, we still have to maintain cash controls. The expenditure of those funds is subject to the procurement. the same procurement rules that we have to follow, but we don't want to track it separately. So it's an opportunity to have a revenue source that goes directly back, normally to the same item,
Yeah, I get that. But so, through you, Mr. Chair, is there any public monies from our budget that go into these accounts, or it's just all monies that come into the city?
Not typically, no. On the rare occasion, there'll be a check that'll come in, donated to the city's, put into the city's general fund, and then transferred out to a revolving fund. But that's more of a rare occasion. Usually it goes, the revolving fund's established, and then said monies go directly into the revolving fund.
And that enables departments to, fill out the deposit slip to make sure those dollars go back in.
Yep.
These appear to be pretty straightforward, but I'll save some technical questions for next year. This is good. I don't know what to ask.
As part of the annual process, we have to approve those revolving funds, so it's road for us.
Yeah.
And I would just note it's already incorporated into this particular order, but recently, Councilor Dibble, we just passed the Derby Square Artist Row revolving account. That's already incorporated into this omnibus order. And correct me if I'm wrong, did we have some seed money for that?
We did, yep.
Yeah,
So the runs that came
that was an
forward for
exception.
the Derby Square Vintage and Flea Market,
Yep.
that money seeded the account, additionally with the Lobster Shanty rent payments.
Any further questions or comments among committee members? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Councilor Gerard?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to approve Council Order number 329 for the revolving funds.
Is there a second? It's been moved by Councilor Gerard, seconded by Councilor Fury of recommendation for approval to the full City Council on Order number 329 concerning revolving accounts. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Matter carries. Next matter on the agenda is numbers 325 and 326. These two matters, which are the bond orders for respectively the water sewer capital equipment and second, the general fund capital equipment and capital improvement projects. Those two separate bond orders are open for discussion this evening, but it's my intention, with the committee's permission, is that we have these also scheduled for Thursday night during our regular committee meeting. The intent here is to have our votes then, because that's going to be after the school budget has been heard by us and hopefully approved by us. And since there are CIP issues, that's why I'm suggesting that we have those votes at that time. But to the extent to lessen any questions or have our, let me try that a different way. In an effort to have those questions asked and answered, let's do that now, if at all possible, and then on Thursday night, we can just hopefully have votes on those matters. And I know that in speaking before this committee meeting with Councilor Milo, that she will recuse herself on one or two of those votes on Thursday, but she's here for discussion on that. So any questions? We've been discussing, so with number 325, we've been discussing these different CIP matters under the various departments as we've gone along, but are there any remaining questions or general questions concerning capital improvement projects? Councilor Dibble.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to take this opportunity to inquire about water system in far South Salem in Vinton Square area. And I know there's some work happening there, but we didn't talk about it when we had the engineers here. I wonder if you might be able to fill me in a little bit about that. I have a neighborhood meeting with maybe 100 people or more from that neighborhood, Village of Vinton Square, next week, and I know that issue will come up.
To Dave, I know that we're looking at, we asked him to assess some of the breaks we had, especially from like Dead Man's Square up to Vinton Square, to get a better handle on what are things going on. And he had some thoughts about are we shutting down? We have duplicate lines up there. Are we shutting down both lines when there's a water break? Just because shut it down and then shut everything down and then find it, or are we experiencing, some issues that some families that need to be addressed? So I know he was doing some assessments with an engineering firm and rural protection services, but I don't have all the details, Steve. So I'd rather have him provide you with that info, especially if you're going to share information with residents, and making sure it's accurate.
Right, the last time I had brought this up about a month ago, he said he was looking into it, trying to figure out the gates and other things.
Exactly, yeah.
A study of the infrastructure, because they weren't really sure what controlled what, because a bunch of new things had just been installed over the last bunch of years.
Master valve, like, shut them all down. So that's exactly the conversation I had. You may have been in the same conversation.
We've had a lot of water breaks and a lot of water shutoffs in that whole neighborhood, south of, actually from my house on, the whole area. And it's kind of a record number, I think, recently. So I'll get with Dave on that one. Thank you.
Any further questions on any capital improvement projects? Councilor Dibble.
Yes, Mr. Chair. When will this be taken up? Thursday at a committee meeting or?
Well, both. First, it'll be brought up Thursday night during our subcommittee meeting at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
But again, my intent is, if you've got questions, now's the time to do it. If you have very limited questions on Thursday night, we'll entertain them. But I don't want to take a lot of time, because we will want to use most of that time to hear from our school superintendent.
I'm all set. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, I will entertain a motion to continue both matters 325 and 326 to Thursday at 6.
You just want to continue them, you don't want to approve?
Yeah, well, we don't want to vote on these tonight. We'll do that after.
Then can we do it together?
That's what I just suggested. Councilor Gerard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we continue orders number 325 and 326 to our committee hearing on Thursday night at 6 p.m.
Second. It's been moved by Councilor Gerard, seconded by Councilor Dibble, to move to continue both matters of 325 and 326 to the previously scheduled hearing of Thursday, the 9th at 6 p.m. at a regularly scheduled committee meeting. No further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Matter carries.
Excellent job, Matt.
Councilor Gerard.
I move to adjourn.
Actually, Councilor Fury.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.